Mark Sera. Am I pronouncing it right?
How's it going? Yeah, perfect.
Awesome. Welcome,
Nailed
man.
it.
Thank you so much for coming to the podcast. Coming. That's the
Appreciate
closest to the coming we can get nowadays, I guess, huh?
it.
So you're calling from Toronto, right? So you were from
Yeah,
Canada.
Toronto, Canada. Yeah, Ontario. It's freezing. We just got a huge snowfall. If anyone's listening out there that has a warm climate and want to invite me to their warm climate, I'm open. Let's go.
That's
It's so
amazing.
cold here.
Well, I came upon your channel on TikTok,
Nice. Oh yeah.
and I was obsessed because I do something very similar on TikTok, but for
Yes.
Russian-speaking audience. So it's another language, but it's very similar. I talk about just films and filmmaking and my favorite films, and I studied film, so I'm a filmmaker. I went to film school. So it's kind of I give sometimes like an inner look into what filmmaking is all about. Tell some give some opinions on things people who just watch films might not even realize, or and then I started doing breaking down films in 60 seconds, right? And
Love that.
it's kind of something like similar you do, where it's there's a lot of TikTokers now in film kind of industry that are basically film buffs. Like they're
Totally.
not filmmakers necessarily, which is totally fine, right? It's totally cool, but they're just big fans. They're fans that share their opinions. And then there's someone like you who is like basically film critic, film historian, film
No.
like philosopher, maybe possibly. I want to get into this,
Yeah.
but it's fascinating. So, and I just figured, I want to talk to this guy. I think we have a lot in common. We can
Totally.
have a good conversation. So I want you to tell me a little bit about yourself. Like, are you what is all this about? How'd you get to this, and how'd you get into film?
I've always been a film fan. I mean, as young as I can remember, as far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a filmmaker, like the Goodfellas homage. But no, actually, in regards to TikTok, it was funny. I kind of I take messages from the divine very seriously. And whenever more than one person tells me to do something or check something out, I'll do it because it's obviously the universe conspiring against me. They're trying to. So I had no idea about TikTok. I was totally outside of the TikTok realm. And a close friend of mine, Nev Todorovich, fantastic filmmaker in her own regard, she was like, "You got to get on TikTok. Like all these people talk about films. I go deep. It's your love. Like it's a great community." I was like, "All right, maybe." I was kind of like skeptical. I'm always kind of skeptical. And then I got someone else within the month was like, "Dude, you got to get on TikTok. You could talk about movies like these people do." And I was like, "You know what? These are two very different people." My other friend was Matt. Shout out to Matt. Two very different people. They both had the same idea or let's say suggestion. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to try it out. I'm going to test it. And I got on there and I was like, wow, there's some really interesting conversations happening here that don't happen often in these. I would say like doesn't happen on Instagram at all. Doesn't happen really like YouTube is more monologue. Like I like that there's a dialogue happening on TikTok where people are like stitching together and being like, what do you think about this? So I love that component about it. It was just such a great idea. But outside of that, yeah, I'm a filmmaker. I do commercials, music videos, shorts, working on a feature, trying to get a feature developed. So I've just I'm totally immersed in film uh, against my own will. No, no, totally of my own volition.
So you're mostly like a writer director. Is that what you would say? You
Yeah. Oh yeah. And yeah, writer as well. Sorry. I'm also working on a book on Eyes Wide Shut, which has been in the works for quite a while. So I'm a writer, director. I write some film criticism when I can, but I find it's like sometimes I just have these ideas and I'm like, I don't know if I should wait for a publisher, if I should just get these out and like get them on paper or get them on a TikTok and like give it to the people directly, which I find is the best method these days, I
hmm
guess.
Well, let's go a little more back. When you said I always wanted to be a filmmaker, like let's kind of stick to that for a second. Let's say
Yeah,
first film you ever seen. Do you have a memory of the first film you ever seen? Possibly,
that's
maybe
a
the film that
fantastic
got
question.
you into film. Maybe not, but uh,
These are kind of base. What do you guys call it? Like basic
they are basic. But
answers.
I
These are
love
kind of
they're
um,
basic questions too. But I
no, no,
love
no,
them.
no. I love the question is so great, but I fear my answer is very basic. It's very
It's totally cool.
generic. But the question is, I think, important because it's kind of like the doorway into that world. And there was
Fight
two
Club.
pretty important, yeah, exactly. Number one
That's
rule: I
actually
don't
is going to
talk
be
about
yeah. It's actually is going to be my next question. Why is Fight Club, for so many people, the gateway into film world? But that's the next question. Tell me, give me yours.
yeah. One of the first ones, I have two very fond memories. One is my mom and her brother and my brother. My mom and her brother were very big into Roger and Hammerstein musicals. I don't know if you're familiar with them. Carousel, South Pacific, um, fantastic, like The King and I, these really rich, lush, Technicolor musicals. And I remember being a really young kid, kind of peeking through. There's two sofas in our living room, peeking through the sofa and watching them, and kind of being like, "What is this? Like, why are they singing in the middle of this?" Like, I was used to just standard dialogue being read out. This was very young though, and I remember just being totally mesmerized by the color. That 1950s film stock, that kind of Kodak was like 4724 or something film stock, so vibrant, so rich. It was totally immersive. Fast forward a couple years, and they did a re-release of Star Wars. I don't know if you remember that George Lucas's
Yes, of
trilogy. They were just
course.
trying to bank off that trilogy. But my dad took me to A New Hope. He's like, "Hey, you should check this out. Just check out The New Hope." I was like 9 at the time, and it blew me away. I was just like, this is insane. This is wild. And now as I'm older, you read about like the Joseph Campbellian subtext of like Star Wars, and how like it just like goes back, it harkens back to like our primordial, like primitive, not primitive, I don't want to say primitive, but like pre developed concepts of story, and how it kind of taps into that. I'm like, it totally did, because I feel like there was like a lock that was just unhinged when I went to see that, and I was just like, whoa, this is incredible storytelling. It totally took me away. So those were two pretty big experiences, I think.
Depends where you're from, right? Different films affected you in different ways, right? And for me, for example, like in I'm part of the former Soviet Union country, and I don't know if you knew, but in Soviet Union, all these American films were forbidden to watch,
That's right.
right? So what happened in the 90s when Soviet Union collapsed, we got uh, 70s, 80s, and the 90s all
Oh my
together,
God.
right? So for me,
Amazing.
like the 80s films are associated with the 90s. For example,
Right,
E.T.,
right,
all the
right.
and a
Oh,
lot of action,
E.T. Amazing film.
all the big action stars of the 80s. Um, Schwarzenegger, Commandos, Jean Claude Van Damme, all these guys, Predator, all
Brilliant.
the Die Hards, they're all 90s movies for me, and will always be. Which is that's a whole nother conversation and kind of
And so
study
did you
on.
guys, how were they deciding what would come to Azerbaijan? Were they saying like, or the former Soviet Union, were they saying, okay, this doesn't pose any threat politically. It's kind of just
Correct,
a
correct.
malevolent, or sorry, a benevolent kind of action film. Is that kind of the idea?
Generally, nothing was permitted except everything that you were able to see was bootlegs. Like somewhere, someone
Amazing.
got this like VHS of Rambo. You ever heard of
Oh
Rambo?
my God.
And literally people would watch it like that, and it was rare.
Wow.
It was rare. It was all like on this VHSs that like didn't have any imagery or any art, right? It would just
Oh,
be,
that's
it would say
incredible.
Tremors. I had Tremors
Wow.
VHS when I was a kid, and the second film after that was like Pumpkinhead or something. You know, it was
Oh
just like a
yeah.
ridiculous.
Classics.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I remember like one of my early memories of watching a film. I was like hiding behind my neighbors because everyone would come see it. Someone got a new VHS, right? It's
So
like,
someone
oh,
got the
we have
VHS, it was
VHS.
movie night.
Yeah, it was movie night for all the neighbors, and I was hiding behind
That's
people. It was
amazing.
Demons. It was Lamberto Bava's
Oh,
Demons. Yeah,
demons. Yeah, where they're
yeah,
trapped in the movie
yes,
theater.
yes, in a movie theater. Uh,
Fantastic.
I was so scared. It's like one of the scariest like experiences of my childhood. But anyway, but that's a whole nother conversation. I just thought that that's interesting,
That's
and
such a
and that
cool way to get into film, is like by these kind of like, you don't have too much control, but also you're getting these kind of like almost like the creme de la creme. Like you're getting the best stuff in some ways, like Tremors, E.T. Those are like some of the,
yeah, it was an interesting time. But that's what made me think when you talked about your experience. I was like, oh, you grew up. I assume you grew up in Toronto, right? Or is that where
yeah,
you
I
grew
grew
up?
up in
Yeah.
the West End of Toronto. Yeah.
So that's it's interesting to me what was happening there. I'm not familiar. Like for me, like a big gap is I'm not familiar with American TV at all.
Right,
and a
right.
lot of those early films that would even something It's a Wonderful Life, right, or
Oh
something
yeah, yeah.
people have always seen on TV.
I just
For
saw it for
me,
the
it's a
first time
foreign. Yeah,
recently.
I saw it like kind of recently for the first time. A lot of those films, I just don't know them because there never would be on some holiday evening. Like, forget about every Christmas movie, every American Christmas movie, except Home Alone. Like, we had our own
Really?
set
Why
of
Home
like,
Alone?
I don't know why Home Alone is the biggest Christmas movie in all former Soviet Union. It's
Wow.
my favorite Christmas movie.
It's
It's
fantastic.
everyone's
It's
favorite
fantastic.
Christmas movie. It's so
It's amazing.
ridiculous. Yeah, I would like play them back to back, first and second one,
I have
nonstop.
a theory about Home Alone, but
Okay,
I'm
let's
gonna make
go.
a TikTok about it soon. But
Oh, it's gonna be a
it's a
spoiler, but at least give me like a
I think
premise.
the premise is I think perhaps this is gonna get me in like hot water, but like I think maybe, and I love Home Alone. Is Home Alone a Pentagon, like a military industrial piece of propaganda that supports the Aryan idea of home ownership in the face of two, let's say, outsiders, and those outsiders being Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern, an Italian and a Jewish actors being as the outsiders to the, let's say, the Christmas ideal family, which is the McAllisters, which are these kind of like blue-eyed, blonde hair Hitler Youth kind of family that are like, and they have like, and also Chris Columbus, the director. Like, I don't know. I guess I'm gonna make a TikTok about it
I
soon,
feel
but
like that's you got to ask Chris Columbus.
exactly.
And you
Yeah.
also didn't say it's conspiracy theory. I was like, theory. I was like, oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's
Like,
not a conspiracy. I don't think it's I
yes,
don't think they're trying to be like evil. I think it's just like, it's
there
maintaining
it might be
certain.
there. Honestly, I saw the film so many times at this point, and every time I see it, I'm like a better. I feel like every year I get smarter and better filmmaker, right? I hope so. So
Yeah,
every
yeah.
time I see it with kind of a set of fresh eyes, and every time I'm like, it's just not. It's so simple.
It's so
It's
simple.
it's so simple and almost doesn't make any sense.
It
But
doesn't
yet,
make zero
no,
sense. If
it
you
makes
actually
zero
consider the
sense.
film,
No,
it makes
like
no sense.
we and it's almost like with a lot of like holes in the plot because we don't even never get like, how Dennis the Menace is. He's the menace from the minute one, right? And then
100%.
we find out that it actually could work in his, kind of
That's a great film, by the
right.
way. Dennis the
Yeah,
Menace with
that
Walter
that one is
Matthau
really fun. Yes, but
and
with
Christopher Lloyd.
Kevin, he's like, it comes out of nowhere that he has this
It does.
incredible
I
skills,
know
right?
these
It's
engineering abilities. It's
ridiculous.
like
Yes, yes,
it's
it's really
they
funny,
don't
but
build up any of that. It's just all of a sudden he's just like equipped to handle any kind of home invasion. It's like, no, that's not how reality. I mean, you have to kind of have to suspend disbelief when you watch those films. But there's part two takes it to another level where I'm like, okay, this is really like it's insanity. Trump's in it. It's
yeah,
incredible.
yeah, yeah. That's what I. So, see, first, for real now, in my experience, Fight Club. There's something about Fight Club that gets people like it's a cult. You know what I mean? Like
Totally.
let's brainwashes people into loving films. Right.
Yes.
I have my theory on why that is the case, but I'm curious if you ever thought about it or what do you think? Why is that?
I have thought about it because I haven't seen it recently. I remember being, I loved it when I was like, when it came out, I was just like, oh, this is amazing. And it takes on, from what I've read, and now that I think about it, it's taken on a different shape. It's like when I saw it, it was like this kind of like anarchistic, like screw the system, almost like the clock. People called it the Clockwork Orange of our time. And I totally get that. And now as I think about it, I'm like, wait, no, it was like maybe a warning against like the pervasive nature of like masculine camaraderie and all that stuff. There's two reads to it, which I think is good. Fincher's always kind of producing stuff like that. Why I think it hit so hard, I think, is because at that time, was it 90? Was it 99? Yeah, I think it was 99. You more or less didn't have 90s cinema, 80s cinema, and 90s cinema was kind of safe. It was very like, you're not gonna get Kubrickian level of like anti-establishment sentiment, like sentiment in cinema. Here comes Fincher from the music video world, who knows how to capture. This is the key to, I think, Fight Club success. Knows how to capture young kids' attention because he's been working in marketing and commercial commercial work for like a decade. He had been like, the golden child at I think it was Revolver with Mark Romanek, and he was the go-to for every musician. Rolling Stones, Madonna, they'd go to him. So he just had a way to tap into youth's minds. So now marry that with Chuck Palahniuk's writing, and it's a recipe for success, really. Now, it didn't hit well when it came out, but I mean, talk about just like this absolute marriage in heaven. It's like one of the biggest authors of its time, Chuck Palahniuk, one of the biggest directors of the time, David Fincher, one of the biggest actors of all time, Brad Pitt and Ed Norton. And it's just like, yeah, the question isn't why isn't it, the question is, how is it not a success? Like that film is like, that's an insane combo. And it totally hit, like it hit every like prepubescent testosterone piece of me when I was young. I was like, oh man, I want to be part of a club. I want to get the shit kicked out of me. And it's also just that kind of like, I hate to say this, but it's like this emo angstiness to it that spoke to a lot of kids, I think, especially young, disenfranchised males that were kind of like, and now you've seen it kind of like metastasize into something a bit more, I'd argue a bit more dangerous. I don't even know if I want to say dangerous, but definitely a bit more like, it's a bit more weird. I don't want to put too much of a label on it. I don't really care too much about that stuff, but I think Fight Club spoke to that kind of like self-hatred in men, this kind of self-masochistic nature that is like, I don't want to be in this world. I don't particularly appreciate the modernity that is IKEA furniture and, fancy restaurant. Like, it's just the ultimate emo film for, I don't want to say it, but it's like for like, tumultuous youth. It's like, it's every fantasy and nightmare wrapped up into one.
Mm-hmm. I
But
mean,
what do you think though?
no,
I went on a little
I mean,
monologue there.
honestly, you said it better than I would. But that is that. It's something about tapping into that angst of teenagers that they reflect with it. And we can talk about it all day, but it does. There's something cool about it. Slash, I never thought about the connection between. I knew that Fincher was making music videos, but I never kind of made that connection that he is able to kind of bring it into his films, and which they do, right? It has like that kind of 90s, a lot of 90s films had that music video, a little bit of like element, even like the flashes, and like the Matrix has it, you know what I mean? Like a lot of
Totally.
90s stuff has it.
Sorry,
And
I should have, let me
yeah,
correct myself. It wasn't Revolver Films. He was working for Propaganda. Sorry, that was the company. It was Propaganda. It was like Michael Bay, Michel Gondry, Spike Jonze. All those guys kind of came out of that. Sorry, I just wanted to
right, no,
clarify.
no, yeah, makes a lot of sense. So that makes sense too, and yeah, there's something there. I think you
And
answered it perfectly.
and I think and I don't want to get too much into like whatever, but I think the 2000s equivalent, the early 2000s equivalent for a lot of young people was Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Oh,
That film
interesting.
was huge. I remember
Yeah.
that film being massive when I was growing up. So you had these kind of, and both came out of the same system, which were music video directors, commercial directors that were trying to vie for the attention of the new generation, and they succeeded magnificently. Like some of the technical prowess in Fight Club is unmatched. It's so
It
good.
is, yeah, it is. Well, and all of that plus both of those films, Eternal Sunshine, I think that's a good example. Just like Fight Club, uh, they play with the abstract, right? And
Exactly.
the young, it's you're just young enough to understand it because it's
Yes.
actually not that complicated, right? Eternal Sunshine, two people like they can be together yet they always end up being together, right? That's kind of the
Yeah.
weird kind of loop that they're stuck in,
Paradox.
right?
Yeah.
Paradox. And um and with Fight Club, it clearly plays with a lot of abstract. It's actually not a straight up film. Like you show it to someone who is not ready for that kind of um, mm, visual material, and they will be confused. Like my mom probably wouldn't like it, to say it
Yeah.
simply. Like she would be like, "What's going
Likewise.
on? Why are they?"
Yeah.
But back then, the kids were ready. I guess they were equipped enough to understand it, and it was just perfect. It hit the right age, and you can be still confused about some things, but that's fine. It's still you're like, oh my god, film can be more than just straight lined story. It could be a little
Yes.
more kind of interesting, and I understand it, you don't, and I'm cool because I do.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
part of the club, right? So it's
Exactly.
like, so I think that's also kind of cool to understand and like something that's not everyone does. And I think Eternal
Totally.
Sunshine is also similar.
Yeah, there's a bit of like you touch upon a good point, which is like there's a kind of insiderness to those works that these directors, Fincher and Michel Gondry, were so good at making because they were writing a new film language. They were writing a language within their visuals that was almost harder to decipher, right? You were dealing with language that was being, again, imported from the commercial world and from the music video world, where abstraction was a bit more coveted, a bit more respected. And you had that moment between the late 90s and early 2000s, like Donnie Darko, Eternal Sunshine, these films that were attempting to and like accept the kind of enigmatic nature of themselves and be like, look, we're going to write our own language. Do I think it worked? In some cases, yes, but it's that idea of, like you said, these kids are opening up a book that is like, oh, instead of the sentence being written, Johnny walks across the street, it's like, it's totally different. It's like the language is almost like you have to have like a mirror to read or something. So I love how film language has totally changed in interesting ways in at the turn of the century like that. And Fincher was so good at just he still is. He's just so great at tapping into that kind of that mindset, especially with Social Network too, where you have a very dense script being beautifully, beautifully depicted in just like the speed, the pace of Social Network. You're just like, wow, this is a language unto itself.
Would you say that Social Network is your favorite Fincher film because you brought it by yourself?
My favorite Fincher film is Gone Girl.
Oh wow, interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
Why?
I mean, here's the thing, I love Fincher. I love his craft. You can't watch a Fincher film without being totally, even if you don't love what Fincher's exploring, which is often masculine figures that are alienated and depressed and trying to figure out ways out of their own paranoia, like in The Game or Fight Club. Even if you don't like that subject matter, you can't deny his craftsmanship or
Oh, for sure.
craftspersonship, which is just impeccable. But I think what I love about Gone Girl is I love Gillian Flynn's work so much that I'm like, oh, Fincher's tapping into an emotional cadence that he's never tapped into before. Even with
Interesting.
Zodiac, which Zodiac is arguably his most complex film, which I love, and that's usually, film guys tend to say that's Fincher's best. It's great, but I think he taps into an emotional space landscape that he's uncomfortable exploring with Gone Girl that he never did before or has done since. And that is the mindscape of like he's he's creating the ultimate femme fatale and he's creating the ultimate comedy because if you think about the end of Gone Girl, it's the best punchline ever. And he's creating a Hitchcockian thriller all wrapped into one. To me, it's like no one has done that since. Like no one has, and I just love. I love so many beats of it. I love the moment when I love how it feels like sometimes like you don't know who to. It's the ultimate unreliable narrator. You don't know what to believe or who to believe. And Fincher's so good at creating these characters that you don't know what to believe. Is this the truth? Fight Club's like that. You're like, who is this? What character is this? Um, and Zodiac is also like that. You're like, who do I believe? But in Gone Girl, it's not just a narrative device. It's also implicit to the main character's sense of sanity, which I love. I love it that like, I don't know, I just love that film. It's great.
What do you think about genres today? And don't you think there's something that happens with, I do feel in general we're kind of in this some sort of uh, period of change, right? Let's just
Big
call it
time.
that, right?
Big time.
Metamorphosis is happening, and we don't really know where it's going with the shows, with TV, with films, and what's popular. I feel like genres just blended in, and a movie that comes out in the theater just it warrants to have or it has to have by the, I don't know, set of producers, kind of every genre built into it. And there's kind of, that's almost like a status quo that we have right now. But what do you think?
You make a great point. Like, we are in a metamorphic time. Things are changing. People don't know which, like, the ground is shifting and people don't know where to go, especially in cinema. People are kind of like, is it going to become this? Is it going to become that? My belief is, like any medium, art goes through different periods. It goes through different changes. And there's always the fear, when the photograph came out, people were like, oh, well, that's the end of painting. Why do we need painting if the photograph's coming out? Like, there's always a fear of things becoming extinct in the face of something else. That's inherent in all humans. It's not, I don't think that's a new thing to cinema. It's just like, it just as the way opera died to, a different form, so will film. It won't die, it'll just change. Like you said, it's a major change time. Genre was so important, and it still is, but genre was so important in the early from the conception of cinema becoming commercialized, because it was a Fifth Avenue conception. Do you know what I mean by that? It was a bunch of overpaid advertisers being like, how do we sell this film? We got to sell this film. And so the easiest way in the 40s and the 50s was, it was a Western, capital W Western. John Ford, John Wayne, you know what you were getting when you went in. It was product advertised as sold. You know what I mean? And that carried on to the 60s and the 70s. And it was like, horror was such a beautifully curated genre, and it was such a hyper propagated genre because people knew what they were getting. I'm going to go see Rosemary's Baby. Why? Because do you see the trailer? The trailer tells me it's a horror film. It's also a psychological thriller and a bit of a character study, but no, it's a horror film. The genre helps collapse all of these complex ideas into something very digestible. And for that, it's incredibly useful, because our brain, if you try to sell a film without genreizing it to people, they're like, what the hell are you talking about? It's like this, but it's also like that, but it's also like, no, it's a romance. So two people falling in love. And we love that. It's a comforting thing for people to kind of latch onto. So now, as all the medias blend and all of these ideas can start cross-pollinating, and so you have films like Midsummer, which is like, it's a horror, but it's also kind of like a romantic drama, but it's also kind of like an abstract experimental film. You have these kind of genres now intersecting, and so it becomes more difficult to kind of qualify them. And I think that's not going to just stop. I think that's going to become even more prevalent, and people aren't going to know what the hell, like, what is this? Like, I don't know what this is. Is it is it a sci-fi? Is it a horror? Is it a this? But humans, I think, generally speaking, the audience is kind of accepting that genre. It's it's kind of old hat. It's kind of like, I'm personally like, I love a genre film. I love a horror film. I love a Western, but I'm not going to seek out always that genre. I'll seek out more a director or an actor or a cinematographer. Like, I want to see their work. So it's interesting you say that, though. We are in a big change. I don't know. What do you think about that? Like, what do you think cinema is going to head?
Well, that's a $1 million question. Like, that's honestly like something that interests me a lot. And like you said, you know, uh, like at some point in our life, the only art you can enjoy is classic art, right? Or the only music you can enjoy is classical music, and that's it. And there's people who
Totally.
discuss it all day long, and then some change. Like, no matter what you say, films and popular music is more popular than you know any other music. It's and
Exactly.
art is still relevant, but classic art people go see less and less, and most of the people go to museums that don't even know much about art. They just go to see it as a check mark, and that's not a criticism on people. I'm just saying it's just
No,
not popular anymore. It's
no,
just not a thing people do. There's better alternatives, easier to comprehend alternatives.
exactly.
Which is
That's the key. Easier to comprehend alternatives. That's exactly it.
and me and you can. There's probably an argument to make that Space Odyssey is easier to understand than a art piece from a long time ago. I don't know. I'm actually not very
Right.
familiar with art, but now me and you can complain that I don't know. Armageddon is crappier than, Space Odyssey was the real movie. Armageddon might not be a good example, but name another sci-fi film that isn't great. Oblivion. I don't know.
Right.
And it's just like now they just do that. I wish they made films like, I don't know, Alien or. Do you understand what I'm saying? It keeps sinking, right?
100%,
The ship keeps sinking. Like the film that broke my heart was It, the new
Oh
It.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Like
I
I
saw
don't
it.
know if you know the full story with Cary Fukunaga being involved, and he was
Yes.
going to direct it, and he was interested in the weird shit from Stephen King's book,
Oh, Stephen
and
King's fantastic.
yeah, he was interested in all the kids like having sex, and stuff like, which is like interesting.
Just turns into a
It's
George Araki film. He's like, you know
right,
what, we're gonna.
exactly. Yeah, he was definitely interested in that. And then after about a year, he's still credited as one of the writers of the
I saw
script.
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I saw his credit in there.
but they separated for different views on the
That's sad.
project, and then we ended up getting the basically a roller coaster ride, right? That's
Right.
what the film is. It's full of it's kind of a mash of all genres. It's
It
comedy,
is.
it's drama, it's melodrama,
Stranger Things kind of
Stranger
TV
Things.
show.
Exactly, it's 80s nostalgia. I guess that's a
Yeah.
that's a genre now, right?
Yeah, it
It's a
is.
horror. I guess it's an action film, especially part two. And and here's the thing: like I can complain about it all day long, but it's one of the most successful horror films of all time. So what do I know? You know what I mean? So it's this loop that I
I
find
think,
myself,
but the thing is, like, I think what you said is, I think you're right. Like I think there's a world where those two films can exist, where the one that you're talking about exists, the Cary Fukunaga one, and the one that made $1 billion. The problem is I think the problem is, with that in that situation, and I'm part of me is a purist, and like part of me is like I love a classic film from a very whatever a studio director like John Frankenheimer or Michael Curtiz, but and this is a horse that's been flogged to death, but cinema is becoming more and more corporatized. There's more and more shareholders to appease. There's more and more. I see it all the time, the logic of safety. The logic of safety is, why would we take a risk with $50 million when we can do what we know will work over and over and over again? And the logic of safety is definitely an economic theory. It's a theory that's derived from the free market. Hey, why would you change the ingredients to Coca-Cola? They love Coca-Cola. Give them the Coca-Cola. Don't give them anything different. Don't give them cherry. Don't give them vanilla. Don't give them lime. And that's totally permeated cinema. I mean, it's not a new thing. It's been permeating cinema since the 40s, but it's becoming way and way more concentrated that these big IPs or these big intellectual properties like Stephen King's novels you will never see a Stephen King film approach anything remotely close to, let's say, a Denis Villeneuve Enemy, where it's like taking abstract liberties. And that's not because Stephen King won't give you the rights. Stephen King actually is very vocal, and he has dollar babies. These are stories that he's giving away to directors for $1. I don't know if you've ever been to his website. You can click on and go, oh, these are little stories that anyone can take for $1. They can option it for $1 and make any movie they want out of it, just to say they did a Stephen King film. It has nothing to do with Stephen King. It has to do with studios taking this big name and this huge concept and being like, all right, we're going to put a lot of money into this. So we got to make sure we don't lose any single cent of it. So I don't know. I don't know if that. I don't even know if what we're talking about is pertaining to that.
You're giving the answer that we don't like. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
We just don't. We just hate to hear this. I mean, people, listen. I've heard this answer a million times. I've given this answer to people. You've probably heard it before. You've said it before. We just don't like it. You know what I mean? It's just not satisfying to us.
It's tough. I kind of blame. I don't. Here's the thing. I hate to shirk the responsibility of like the individual, but it's kind of like our fault in a way.
Yes.
Like, we don't have to go out in droves to Marvel films. We don't have to go out in droves to see another reboot or another remake.
To this.
We are, and that's the thing, is like, part of me is like, look, there's so much, there's billions of dollars being pumped into making sure that you go see that reboot of this film that you don't need to see. Like, you could not never watch it. You could never watch Top Gun Maverick and you'll be okay. But there's billions of dollars invested to make sure that your eyeballs get locked into that screen. And like you said, conditioned to it. It's like, it's really hard for especially a growing brain that's like 8 or 9 years old that doesn't even know how to like, totally, utilize every part of its neurological capacity to like circumvent all of the money that's being used to totally manipulate it. And again, I'm not saying that it's the corporation's fault. Obviously humans have choice, obviously we have a choice to not go, but at the same time, it's a bit unavoidable. Especially when these small films get what, a week in the theater, like 2 weeks maybe.
I
Like,
mean, unless it makes money, then it stays longer. But generally, yeah,
exactly.
nowadays especially. What do you think of what is going to happen to theaters? I just went to Pittsburgh like 2 3 weeks ago, and I
Oh,
went to
nice.
Manor Theater that's
Oh,
100 years
cool.
old, which is really cool.
Oh,
I
it's
saw
amazing.
Tar there.
Oh, what'd you think of
Uh,
Tar?
we're gonna talk about Tar, hopefully.
Okay,
I
okay,
saw it
okay.
twice already.
Oh, nice.
It's
Same,
it's my
same.
number one pick so far
Yeah,
for
it's
the. I think
fantastic.
it's just a great film. But let's.
The
I want to
theater.
know about the theaters. What do you think is gonna happen? Um, I hope they stay, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's no theater left in 100 years. At least for the purpose that we are used to.
I don't like to be Nosferatu. I don't like to be. I don't want to look into a crystal ball, but it's one of these things where, again, it's these are cultural institutions in the same way that a concert hall is a cultural institution. Now, that being said, the oldest and best opera houses in Europe very rarely show opera. Like they're showing other things because things change. So it's like, things get refabbed and this and that. Art galleries change. What once adorned the walls of the Louvre is now a different thing. What I'm trying to say is, I guess, like, I'm bracing for impact. I'm bracing for the, we're going to a recession. People need escape during recessions. Cinema historically does well during recessions. People go, hey, I only got $30 tonight. All right, well, we're gonna go to the movie with the kids, come home. So the optimism, the silver lining is, yes, great, the economy is collapsing, cinema is going to be okay, theaters are going to be okay again. But also it's that thing of like, yeah, but why do that when I can just stay at home and stream for $10 a month? As we're both film lovers, so we're like, what? We can't imagine a theater going the way of the dinosaur. But I love theaters. I love cinemas. I used to work at a theater. I love the experience of working at a theater. I just love the communal aspect. There's something beautiful about seeing something with other people. I've yet to experience what I've experienced in a theater at home, but again, that's a generational thing, man. Like, who am I to say to the younger generation, you ain't gonna ever get the experience I got seeing Star Wars at the Skyway in Rexdale, on a Friday night? They're gonna be like, yeah, I kind of got it. Like, I got it when I was streaming the Mandalorian at home. Like, all right, maybe they did. I don't know. Maybe they did. I have no idea. I hope they do. This is the thing. At the end of the day, I can't pick a side because I just hope that people are having these beautiful cathartic experiences, whether they be at home with their family or out with their friends at a movie theater. I don't know. Like, it's depressing to think that.
Then I want to ask you, why is film important?
Geez, that's a huge question.
When you said we talked about, I hope people have cathartic experiences, yada yada yada. I kind of want to direct you into that.
It's a heavy question, Zeke. That's a heavy question. That's like writing a book about that right now. Why is film important? Dude, I'm such
You
a
know what?
nihilist. It's like
Let's
nothing is
split this.
important. Yeah.
Let's do this. Let's do. Why is it important to you?
Okay, thank you. That's way
Yeah,
more.
sure.
It's important to me because I just love getting enveloped by other people's consciousness. Like, I feel like an evolved state, we'll all be just kind of transferring consciousness to each other, being like you'll just, instead of telling me what you did last night, Zeke, you'll be like, look at that. You'll be like, put this in your brain. I'm like, oh, cool. No way, you met that person at the bar. That's awesome. I get lifted by seeing and feeling other people's experiences because that's just what I like. I like being able to hear about people's lives. That's I think the best gift of being alive is like not only do I get to live this life, I get to experience vicariously other people's lives. And even if they're tragic and like, I think about Kiarostami, like the Iranian cinema, that's like, it's so heavy. It's got all of this, the burden. I watch those works and I'm like, it's so otherworldly. There is more of an otherworldly experience in a Kiarostami film than there is in a Star Wars film, because I'm so removed from that experience. I don't know what it's like to live in a place where there's abject poverty and like, people are hustling on the street. Like it's an incredible gift for artists to share their experience with each other. And I guess this applies to all art. I'm not just making it a case for film, but I think film is, to me, the most direct key to other people's consciousness. Like you get it with music, it's like that too, in a way more, I think, in a more emotional capacity. But I mean, dude, it is truly a gift. I thank my lucky stars that I get to experience what other people experience every day. It's incredible. Imagine we all couldn't do that. Imagine we were just living in our own time, like that scene in Ready Player One where they're just like living in their own hubs. It's like that would scare me. Like, oh my God.
Well, those people sounds like terrible start of sentence, but
Yeah,
some people
never use those two words
never
together. Those
uses, yeah, exactly, yeah. People would say, "Oh, the book was so much better," right? And I have usually so
with
much,
which?
or just with everything, right? Every
Oh, okay,
other,
okay, yeah, yeah.
right?
Sorry,
People
sorry,
just
sorry. Yeah,
say
yeah,
that, right, as just
yeah.
as a statement, and
Totally.
I just think it's the core of the question is just incorrect because it's just a different medium, right? And even though yes, you're consuming a story, but with a book you spend more time, you get to know so many more details. There's just so much more that goes into reading a book than a film. Um, I guess my question is, why is it different? What do you say? What would you say? How is film different than just consuming a story from a book? What's the difference?
I mean, like I personally agree, like with what you're saying. I think a book is going to give you a different, a way more in-depth experience for sure. How could it not? Like there's, there's so much
But
intricacies.
now, like mostly books will uh, communicate a story to you, and film can kind of do a little bit more. I mean, yes, there's still a story, but if we go, especially in abstract world, right? There's still, I guess, a story, but something about visual experience, like a 30-second a piece of film about, kind of without a traditional structure could still be a piece of film that's important, right? It's almost like a painting that lasts 30 seconds. I'm just saying, like
Yes.
if we go a little deeper, like what's
I
the
mean, I think truly my most honest answer to this is like it's all one. Everything is one. I've heard songs that transport me into worlds that are way more detailed and elaborate than anything in 2001: A Space Odyssey. I've also read books that don't take me nearly as in depth visually as, you know, Blade Runner. And I have read the Philip K. Dick, uh, do Electric Sheep Dream, do Dreams. Yeah. But it's all the same experience. I think what it is you're tapping into the human emotion or the human element. And you could say, well, what about AI? AI is producing stuff, and it's as good as, and I 100% agree, it could be. But those are all aggregate ideas and features from human experiences that it kind of ingests and then puts out. But the book, I think, is on par with this, with film, which is on par with music, which is on par with painting. They're also, they're so interconnected. I'll put it this way. You wouldn't be able to have a film without a book. You wouldn't be able to have a theater without a book. So a book is, in a way, the mother. Let's say the mother. What do they call it when you're making like bread? It's like the mother yeast, if you will. Does the has the and this is a big part of The Shining, right? The Shining is all about, can the son exceed and or overtake its parent? Can a film ever overtake its inherent source? Right, and that's why there's a great kind of tongue-in-cheek moment in The Shining where Kubrick frames that giant truck that just totally gets sidewinded by that small little beetle, right? And the Beetle was, of course, Stephen King's idea. Um, and the truck is obviously indicative of Kubrick's idea, grand. Can it overcome the book? I don't know. I think it's the same and completely different simultaneously, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, the question is quite simple, but it, yet people still like, ask that question, and I think there's many answers sometimes to the same question. So I wanted to pick your brain on that.
I also love, don't you love, like, I personally, what I love about adaptations is I love seeing two personalities merge for 1 second. It blows me away. It's like you're taking someone else's idea, like Bret Easton Ellis with American Psycho. You're taking someone else's written idea. They give it to someone else, Mary Harron for American Psycho. She takes that idea and then she merges her own idea. Like the conceptualization of cross pollinating two brilliant artists is beautiful. I think that's an incredible. It's like, is the book better? I don't know. American Psycho, the book, is pretty intense. It's pretty violent. It's pretty misogynistic. The movie is definitely safer. The movie is definitely more pop. But I don't know. It's
How much do you think a director can go off the, I guess, off the direction of? Okay, does the adaptation of the film, of the book and a film, have to have the same thesis or no?
no, but I think that people fall in love with books for different reasons. Excuse me. Look, I'll put it this way. Someone could adapt Moby Dick and not get the intricate details of what Herman Melville is trying to put across, but still capture some essence of what that book is. Someone else could capture all the details of Moby Dick down to every single, insane analytical nature of Melville's writing, but not get the essence. So it's this thing of I think people have to adapt things for the right reasons, and understanding things can come in totally different shapes and sizes. I've seen you and I have seen tons of adaptations probably of the same book, and we're like, what the hell? How does that's a totally different read than this director. But it might be better. I don't know.
For
May not
example,
be as
I think that adapting uh, like Dostoevsky is almost impossible. Like there are some
totally,
films
totally.
from like Soviet Union. There's a Crime and Punishment film that's, it's okay. Like it has good acting, it has good, this and that, but it doesn't capture the essence of Dostoevsky, I believe. But you know what does?
Let me ask you this though, because you speak the native tongue. Do you think that's because the English translation doesn't even capture the essence of the material, and therefore it's a derivative of a derivative?
For sure, absolutely. Plus, the adaptation that I'm talking about is Soviet adaptation, so it is in Russian
Oh,
language,
okay.
right?
Okay.
I have a theory. I guess I should probably like externalize it at some point. Make a TikTok video about it. But I think that Machinist, which is,
Mm, I've
or
never seen it.
Match
Okay.
Point,
Oh, I
Woody Allen
love
movie.
Match Point.
Yeah,
Love
I
Match.
I
That's my favorite
really
Woody Allen.
oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I like it a lot.
Very Dostoevsky. Very
Yeah, yeah. For
Dostoevsky.
me, that's, if you wanna adapt Dostoevsky, you got to make a completely different movie. That's my
100%.
that's what I think. I think that Match
Wow.
Point and
Wow. Wow.
Machinist is basically the best Dostoevsky adaptations, because they're films, and or what's the other one with Joaquin Phoenix and Emma Stone, something man, weird man, strange man, or also a Woody Allen movie. Emma Stone, right?
Oh,
Emma
yeah,
Stone.
yeah. An irrational man.
An
Yeah.
irrational man, weird man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never saw that, but yeah.
Oh, that's great. Oh,
Is
you're
it?
gonna
Okay.
love
Okay.
it. Yes, yes.
Okay.
It's really good. It's anyway, I love Woody Allen, even though he's has a very
And what
infamous
do you think
persona. But
what do you think? Because I'm interested in this because I love Match Point. So what do you think Match Point captures in Dostoevsky that other adaptations couldn't?
that cold, like macabre, is that the word?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's like Coen Brothers play with like
Yes.
dark stuff, but it's very sarcastic. It's very
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Ironic.
postmodern, right?
Yeah.
Ironic, and
Yeah.
kind of they're so aware of it, right? In Dostoevsky, it's not postmodern. It's very real. It's very honest.
Yes.
It's very genuine, and very ruthless, and very kind of just you're faced with it almost without what's the word, without climax and without build up. You just faced with these terrible events, uh, blank slate, right? No, blank, point blank.
Point blank. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And I
Which I have
think,
a poster of. I have a
oh
poster of that
really?
movie.
Oh, that's funny. And oh, here we go. Oh, that's awesome. And I think Match Point kind of does that. It strikes you. It surprises you with in a undramatic, like opposite of dramatic, like way. It's not overly dramatic. It's basically kind of
Agreed.
very real and kind of out of nowhere. And
In fact, he tries to suppress drama, because there's that scene where she's walking outside of it's a very beautiful street in like Regent Street in London, and she's freaking out, and he's like, "Shh, like, be quiet, be quiet." Like, it's trying to keep it all under wraps. Like, it's restrained.
yes, and I think Machinist is a little more pop version of that. I actually,
I
I
have to
don't.
see this.
Machinist is, you know what I'm talking
Christian
about,
Bale,
Christian
yeah,
Bale
Christian
movie. Yeah,
Bale,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I highly recommend it. It's very kind of. I mean, I don't think it's as good as Match Point, but it's very pop. I mean, that's the best way I can describe it. It's just everything is kind of clear. You don't have any questions. Everything is methodical, and there's a multiple. The clear references to Dostoevsky. The Guy's Reading Idiot by Dostoevsky, and I think Dostoevsky
I
is
think he's
actually
reading it
in,
in
in
Match
Match
Point
Point
too.
too. He's
Yeah,
reading,
yeah.
I think.
Jonathan Rhys Meyers is
Yeah, I
reading
think he's reading Crime and
Crime
Punishment,
and
but
Punishment. Yeah,
maybe, which is that's what I
which is
think it
great.
references to the most. Um, yeah, I guess that's just like to if we wrap up the book conversation. That's kind of my also read some books. You can adopt them because uh, how do you adapt. Maybe theater would be a better version
Yeah.
for Crime and Punishment, because there's so many monologues that have to be said. You have to read through
Yes.
them to really
Yes.
get to the core of these characters, and that's the most boring thing you can do in a film. you know
Totally.
I mean,
Totally.
for
Yeah.
once at a climax of a movie, sure, like a little speech, but at every corner, that's just impossible.
And that's kind
um
of what, when Kubrick was once asked about adapting certain authors, and he would say, like, like Faulkner is unadaptable, because Faulkner goes into, like, he'll describe the driveway for 2 pages, and it's like, how do you do that? But in the same, coin, look at 2001, right? One of the most complex, one of the most incredible narratological leaps as far as time and space. The story is like 5 pages. The short story, The Sentinel, that Arthur C. Clarke wrote, is so short. Same with Stephen King. I think Stephen King's best adaptations are novellas. They're 100-page. They just pack a punch. The Body, 85 pages. Stand by Me is
your
like a
favorite
2-hour
movie,
film.
right? Apparently. One of your favorite
One of
coming
my
of ages.
favorite
Yeah, yeah.
coming of ages. Yeah, and like, it just goes to that what you're saying, which is like, there's so much density in a book that it really is. Like, I've never seen the War. Have you ever seen a War and Peace by the Russian director?
Yeah, the oh my god.
But I've heard it's almost like, to take on the feat of adapting it is one thing, but then to actually do it, it's like,
And it's
and then
no
hope to,
CGI. They actually shot
no CGI.
the scenes. Yeah.
That's
What the hell is
insane.
the guy's name? I'm gonna kill
It's
myself.
like Serge Bajvik or
Sergei
something.
Bondarchuk. Yes, yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes. That's what it
but
is. Yes. I was
yeah.
like, but yeah, that's also another example of a guy who describes driveways for many pages. So that's why
Yeah.
it's such a thick book. That's one of the reasons. It's just that's his
Yeah.
style. I want to get to the next phase. I want to ask you more questions, if you don't mind, about the industry a little bit.
Mhm.
If when young people approach you, and I mean, I guess we're young too. I hope to think that.
Ooh,
But when
getting up
younger
there.
people, yeah, get up there, yeah. When younger people come, like really young, like 19, 17, people who want to do film and approach you, ask you how the path to the industry, like what to do, right? They want to, we all started there someday, wanted to be next to Steven Spielberg. What do you recommend to a young person to do if they want to be a filmmaker?
Be born to a very wealthy family. That be, it's the thing of like film is such a high barrier entry because it requires so many resources. And it's daunting because you're like, man, not only do I need time, which is a fucking luxury, I need money and I need people and I need locations. Like it's everything. So but at the same time, it's become so democratic that anyone with a camera can pick up, you know, tell a story. The real honest answer is inundate yourself with film in any capacity. If you're 17 and you're not watching, like when I was 17, you have more leisure time, right? Watch a film a day, watch 2 films a day, meet other people that like films, surround yourself with people that can kind of cultivate your interests because it's so important to keep it alive. You know, that's the most important thing I think is maintaining a network of like-minded people. Second most important thing is be willing to take a risk. Like and I know forget about low budget films, big budget films sometimes don't break even. They don't even make their money back. So knowing that the odds, there's something kind of like cool about that. It's like the odds are totally the same, whether you're Steven Spielberg or if you're Joe Blow that's living in a basement in Minnesota. Your odds of success. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that you have access to the same resources and people, but what I'm trying to say is Steven Spielberg could bomb. He could make another film and no one will go see it. I mean, The Fablemans wouldn't be that, but know that basically, you have, I don't know, it sounds so trite, but it's like, it depends on what you want to do also, Zeke. Like it depends. If you're a writer, what do you want to do? You want to write, send out spec scripts, send out ideas, get into writers' rooms, see if you can meet other writers, see if you can get your scripts made by someone else. If you're a director, get more experience with actors. Develop, when you're 17, you haven't had a lot of experience with actors. Go step in some theater classes and start working with actors and see what they like, how they operate. I think I'll tell you what I think. I'll give you a diagnosis, and then I'll give you hopefully the opposite. Or I'll give you the symptom and the diagnosis. There's a big symptom right now of directors that are so technical. They can make anything. They make films that look beautiful. They look gorgeous, but the art of theater, the art of being able to communicate emotion through people is gone by the wayside because we live in a very technocratic age. We live in an age where they can't, I can't tell you how many directors I know that can tell me every detail about every new camera that's come out in the last 10 years. But then when you ask them, hey, what method do you use when you're talking to an actor? Do this? I don't know. I use, I think we're getting into that age of like, you either have hyper technical directors or hyper writing directors. Like PTA is a great example. Not that they don't get good performances, but PTA, Noah Baumbach, they're always writing. They're writing. Gone are the days of like a Coppola who came from theater, who came from sitting with performers and being like, hey, let's communicate an emotion together. Let's try to get this idea across. And that's valuable. That's so valuable right now because it's just like, that's why some actors turned directors are the best because they speak that language. And that language is kind of becoming extinct. I love a good man. I can't tell you how refreshing it was to watch Tar and see not just a technical feat. Because look, I'm not saying it's hard to make a technically good film. I'm just saying it's more common. But to see a film that is immersed in the beauty of performance.
Yeah. It pushes new boundaries. I do think this movie pushes new boundaries.
Exactly. It's challenging you. It's challenging you through its emotion, through its sensibilities, not through look how smart I am. How many films do you see now where I get it, you're clever. Like, I'm not interested in cleverness. I'm interested in being challenged emotionally. how do I
because it's been too
feel? What
much postmodern stuff. Even though I
a
love
hundred
my
percent,
favorite postmodernists, I love Coins, I love Tarantino's, but like it's time for genuinity. I feel like again, if people want
hundred
something
percent,
real,
dude.
like 80s nostalgia. Like we keep going back to that, and it's clever, and it's as you said, but like I feel like that we're missing the uh, you know the genuine stuff.
I agree, and I think that there's something like I love, part of me is like, oh, like you said, like I love the postmodernist, like Tarantino, and you know, even Kubrick was kind of was postmodern, but like there's something to be said about a director that understands the bars. They're structuralists, right? So let's look at a classic structuralist, John Ford. Or no, I got an even better example, Federico Fellini. Federico Fellini writes some of the most structured, let's call them aesthetic pieces, like La Strada, right? Or even predating that, he wrote for Rossellini. He was writing just A, B, C structuralist pieces. Then he decided, you know what? I'm bored by that. Now I'm going to go post structuralist. I'm going to start breaking apart everything. But you know what he maintained while he went into that realm is he maintained the emotion of his pieces. And now we live in a world where, like you said, we're so far away from the original, the structuralism of what made great work via, whether it be Billy Wilder or Frank Capra or whomever. And now we've gone straight into like, it's a reference to a reference to a reference to a reference. Don't you get it? It's a tongue-in-cheek modus operandi that I'm trying to, I'm trying to kind of like escape or evade the emotion by showing you how clever I am. It's the death of art, man. The death of art is the absolute adherence to the brain or to the mind. And Kubrick warned about that so many times. Kubrick was the only director I think that had same level intellectual cerebralness along with the and people argue no, he didn't have the emotional, but I would argue he did. And he often warned about that. 2001 is a complete warning against like going too deep into the technocratic like way of thinking, the structuralism, right? Or the
I
post-structuralism.
agree with you very much, especially about young um, directors or even directors our age that are very technical and they know every lens or every camera, but uh, they don't have much to say, unfortunately, right? And
Dude, that's it. It's almost like, do you want, like, the question I think to young artists is like, do you want to impress people or do you want to be honest?
the word is cinematic, and understand
Yes.
they're realizing what cinematic means nowadays has kind of almost like switched the meaning because of all this like YouTube.
Dude,
Like even
totally.
your Canadian fellows like Peter McKinnon's and all these guys who like are like so slick and they can make the best looking commercial and the
Oh
best
yeah.
looking this or that. But there's I don't know if one of the guys, I don't know if he's Canadian, I think American, Parker Welbeck, he does like gear reviews and stuff, and they made a
Okay.
film like somewhat
Ooh.
recently, short film, and these guys like they have like film courses, they teach you how to use all the gear, they have like over 1 million followers, and they're very successful and great. I learned a lot from them when I needed to use a camera or something, but
Yeah.
why go for them? I like them, but when I saw their film I was like, oh my god, this is terrible. It's just not good. And I'm not, if by whatever chance they got to see this, I love you guys. It's not, that nothing against you. It's just there's clearly some gap. There's a
Right.
lot about gear, but like what is cinematic? A drone,
Yeah.
a shallow depth of field, I don't know, a swoosh effect. Like what is it? That's not cinematic.
Yeah. It's
Cinematic has
it's
existed before drones, before any of that. Like is deep focus of Citizen Kane not cinematic? Like you know what I mean?
yeah,
What are we
yeah,
talking
yeah.
about? Like and that's a tragedy for me. Like cinematic losing its value is like a part of like death of like cinema for me. Like it's literally, I hate people misusing word cinematic, because cinema, it's not movie matic, right? We should call it movie matic or something, but
Exactly.
cinematic has completely should
It's a
have completely
connotation.
different. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's breaking my heart every time I hear someone says, "Oh, it looks so cinematic. That's so cool." Like my
Yeah.
iPhone is so
What does that
cinematic.
mean?
It's like,
Yeah.
no, it's
But
not.
it's also, I think, it's an unfortunate symptom of the age we live in. The age we live in, rewards the most. If you have the cleverest tweet, oh look at, she's so cute and clever there, oh my god, you get instantly rewarded. Same with like any kind of like uh like ironic, like, oh look, I'm posting this meme and it's supposed to be an ironic take on something. People go, oh brilliant. They there's a social, like a great there's a social reward to that kind of behavior, and it's totally transferred over into art where it's like, look, I'm being clever and cute and all this stuff, but that's not vulnerability. You know what I mean? Like that's cleverness. And it's funny because they're both rooted in similar things. To be clever, to want to be clever, as Nietzsche said, it's a deep insecurity. It's like I have to, people aren't going to like me, so I got to be really clever and smart so that they can see my value. And that's where that comes from. Whereas being vulnerable, it comes from the same place. I'm hurt, right? And I want to express my hurt, but it's expression in two totally different modes. One of them is like bolstering up the wall and being like, like I'm making you laugh. I'm funny. I'm smart. I'm the smartest guy in the room. Don't hurt me. The other mode is, hey, look, this is how I'm feeling. This is how I feel about the world. I'm not going to use the right language. Maybe I might miss a couple of words. My grammar's not perfect, but this is how I feel. And I'd always take the latter over the former, because that person on the person that's giving themselves everything they have is risking a lot. The person that's being clever isn't risking anything. Like, what are they risking? Like, oh, some money on a nice camera. Like, it's like, yeah, great. It's like, I cannot tell you how beautiful it is to see works today. That is the one shining. I know Tarantino said it's the worst decade for cinema, but like some of the personal stories that are happening right now, it's just like, it's beautiful to see it. Like, I'm moved to see people feeling free to express themselves in really honest ways. Forget about the language. Like, I don't know. I'm like, I don't want to be like Godard, like goodbye to language, but like, there's only so many ways you can write a sentence. You know what I mean? You get what I'm saying? Like, don't try to write the most loquacious, eloquent line. Like, we get it. You know how to write. We get it. Tell us what you actually feel.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, don't cover it up with.
You can put a bow on it later. Don't
Exactly.
start from the bow. Think about the context and
Yeah.
the chocolate itself. Think about the caramel inside, and then
Yeah.
we can figure out the bow. And if it's not the prettiest bow, it still be a good chocolate, you know.
Yeah.
So I agree with you, 100%. But what's some fields of filmmaking you think that are gonna prosper more, and some that might actually die, like the ones
I think,
yeah.
yeah, that's a great question. I think do you want the honest answer? I think in the face of AI, within a century, very few will ever prosper, because AI will eventually, I think, not a matter of if, but when, they will be able to replace the human experience as far as expressing themselves via film or music or writing. But let's say in the immediate future, where before AI has taken over, I would say the most valuable thing is always writing. It's the cheapest thing you can do, and yet it's the thing that what was I think Kubrick said this. I keep on quoting Kubrick because I'm writing a book on him, but he said, like, it's so funny that the writing is the cheapest thing you can do, and yet no films will put like 50 $100 million into this film, and you're like, yeah, but the cheapest thing was the pencil. That's all you just had to get someone that knew how to write. That's going to be valuable forever. A good writer is. I'll tell you what won't be, and this is, I mean, no shade to my technical friends out there. Assistant camera work. I love assistant cameras. I started in my industry as an assistant camera, first assistant camera, pulling focus. These
Same
cameras
here.
are getting really. So then, these cameras are getting brutally good at capturing focus, really being able to give them a field of focus, and they'll get it. Now, that being said, they're not going to do rack focusing like you see in some like 70s films. But then I think about this, right? How many directors do you know contemporaneously use focus in an interesting way? And I was thinking about this a lot recently. I was like, there's not that many. De Palma did quite a bit in the 70s. Kubrick did, obviously, because he would often play with bokeh and all that stuff,
Friedkin
especially
did
with
too. A lot of 70s
Friedkin.
guys, yeah.
Friedkin loved it. Hitchcock loved it. Hitchcock might be the best example of it. But today, it's, again, this goes back to our conversation about technical. These guys know everything about the technical, but it's like, you're not using the material. You're not using those cameras in interesting ways. You're not giving me the breathing of of a lens in an interesting way. So ACs, I think, are going to go by the wayside only because I don't know. I think AI is going to take over that position. It sort of already has with like the Sony FX9 series. The autofocus on those cameras is impeccable. It's scarily good.
That's true. I think that with AI, I mean, that's too scary. I almost don't try not to think about it. I do think that the world right now and in the past 10 years, editors have gone to the moon, if you will, because there's just so much content to edit out there. And as
Dude.
jobs, I'm not even talking about film. I'm just
No, I
saying
know.
like just jobs wise. And I'm actually a video editor in the daytime. So that's my job. So,
Likewise.
oh,
Likewise.
really? Oh, here you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm an editor, you know, and
I
then
can
I
tell
do.
you're an editor. I can
Oh,
tell by
really?
your material. And yeah, 100%. You
Okay,
can always tell
okay.
an editor on TikTok. Like, oh,
That's
they
true.
know
That's true.
they know how to cut.
Yeah.
Or they know to cut, I should say.
Yeah. True. But yeah, so editors, I feel like
You
have
think editors are
gone
going to be
quite.
on?
I no. I think as of now they're quite popular. Like it's one of those professions that those who got in there, like even still, you can still get into editing and be quite successful. Even more
100%.
if you are into like graphic design and maybe After Effects and like kind of
Oh,
VFX work,
that's a
right? So
huge field.
those are very good fields.
If you're young and you have access to a computer and can afford an Adobe subscription, just pick up Premiere and After Effects and you will never be out of work. Like that's the truth, you know, like, and you have to network obviously, but I'm saying
And sound.
it's
if you go to
so,
sound design
sound
and
is
sound
huge
work,
too.
yeah,
Sound is
mixing.
huge too.
Yeah.
Those are
But
great.
the ones that are I talked to I have a working DP guy, yeah, my friend from school, who is he has like a package of like a Alexa Mini and lenses
Amazing.
and a lot of gear, and he started as a AC also, but now he shoots stuff. He shot some music videos.
What kind of what kind of lenses does he have with the kit?
So he recently purchased a set of Cooks. So all
The
six
Cook
lenses.
S4s?
Yeah, I don't
Yes.
know if
Oh
it's
my,
S4s, but yeah.
oh my God. Fantastic.
And yeah, he spent quite a lot of money on them,
Yeah,
but
those are
he
like
figured, yeah, it's
100,
like
100,000.
it's like 60K or some 70K. Yeah, crazy. But he was always. I always talked to him. He would always be of opinion that, well, you know, lenses depends on the project. You just rent lenses, right? But he figured, you
Yeah.
know what, F it, I'm just gonna buy it. But he's obsessed with gear. He keeps buying stuff, so that's just his kind of like
I mean,
almost
that's the other thing
a
is like,
disease.
you know what? It's an addiction. And look, the best of the best have it. Kubrick was addicted to buying gear. Kubrick's collection of lenses was insane. Like, what, he had these just lying around, like he never used them. He had like he liked the Cooks obviously, but it's a good investment.
Yeah,
Lenses
it's
are
good
good.
investment. And I would not argue, but debate, I guess, with him, or just we would just converse. Not a debate, but I would tell him that I feel like this is gonna become obsolete once the cameras,
100%.
you know, videography
Yeah.
is gonna
Yeah.
be more important and more like more prevalent than cinematography. Like videography is going to be the thing.
100%. 100%.
He disagrees, which I wish he was here to talk. But he would basically his point would be that it's just not in like when the budget is decent enough, but then when it's a big Hollywood film, it's just it won't make a difference for them. Where it's you know, $200,000 more for a team of cinematographers that have, it's kind of like don't change the recipe, you know what I mean?
Right.
He kind of made the case around that, and I
There
don't want to
is, and
paraphrase him.
he's correct in that sense. Like, there is a huge protective nature to the technical side of cinema or the Hollywood industry that is like, do not change the recipe, because, you know, the reason you really think an Alexa's worth $50,000? No, you know, like the color science is good, but it's not. You're paying that because it's a high barrier to entry. If everyone could have an Alexa, then Alexas wouldn't matter. If everyone could have, you know, Cook S4s, they wouldn't matter. These companies that maintain these kind of operational, you know, let's say gatekeeping, they do it because they can justify insane budgets, right? Like, look at Soderbergh. Soderbergh is the perfect example of that. He's spoken openly about doing Ocean's 11 with source lighting. He shot it with source lighting. And like they were like, well, what, like when the producers showed up on set, they were like, what the hell? Where the hell's the grip? Where's the electric? Where's the camera? Like, where's the big gear? He had to hire people and hire trucks just to appease and to like console the producers that were worried. They were like, where's our money going? Where's our money going? Because they want to see, oh, here's a camera with the brain with all of the interconnecting. They feel good when they see that. They go, oh, okay, my money's gone to a good place. If they see you with a small DSL, like a Sony FX3 and a small lens, they're going to be like, what the, we paid this guy $100,000 or $1,000,000 and he's not, what is he shooting with? A potato? Like, what is that? So there's this kind of like, again, it all stems from insecurity. People aren't, and the funniest thing, Zeke, the funniest thing is people are shooting 8K raw for something that's going to live on a computer screen.
Yeah, on a
this
phone.
blows me away. It's the same thing that when I used to be on Instagram, I used to scroll through these people. I loved looking at 120 millimeter film. If listeners are out there, they don't know what that is. It's a very large format of film. So 35 mil is about, let's say, 2 inches wide by about 1 inch tall. 120 mil is 120 millimeters wide. And people would be shooting this, which was made for, it was literally made for giant billboard advertising. It was made for giant fashion, billboards and selling in magazines. And they're using it, the 120, to scan it so that you can see it on a phone that's maybe the size of the palm of my hand. We've reached this like almost Kafka-esque absurdity of like all of the technical like abilities have like we're just piling it on, and then the things we're actually watching everything on is just so,
It's funny. In Tar, she says, just do MP3s. That's what people are going to be streaming. Do you remember that?
Yeah. And I remember my
you want
partner.
WAV files? No,
Yeah,
it's fine. Who cares? And it's like that's like the music to listen to, right?
Yes, exactly.
Like in the WAV files.
Yeah, the dynamic range of it, it just
Yeah.
sounds so lush. And she's like, no, just do an MP3. And it's even funnier because Germans, I'm not making any tall tales here, Germans love the technical proficiency of what they do. They're all about like, so that line is twofold funny. It's funny because she's singing to a couple of Germans that are probably like, oh my God, no, we gotta have the highest kilobit WAV file. And it's funny because she knows.
Yeah.
Like,
I want to do like generic questions that will lead us into like some crazy places, but I love those, and I want to just hear your I guess taste more.
yeah.
Your favorite film is probably would be a little unfair to ask, but how about 10 films you would take to abandon island?
Wow, this is Zeke. You're putting me on the spot here, man. You're a bad man.
You don't clearly it doesn't have to be like that's it and you can never change your mind. So,
Yeah.
there could be 30 movies, but just name 10.
I mean, I'm always going to put Eyes Wide Shut on that list because I'm writing a book about it, and it's one of those films that it's like a vast forest. You're going to find something nutritious under a tree or on a stump of it. Like, there's so many things within that. I'm thinking, what I'm thinking about is like, because the desert island is a totally different thing. Desert island is I think part of it is like you want to go places that will give you cultivate a lot of like nutritious material for like a long stay versus like what's a comfort film. It may not keep you or hold you for 10 years on an island, but so I'm thinking about things that'll have like, I think Kurosawa's Throne of Blood or Ran would be on that list. Like I could just revisit those movies time and time again, just the climaxes of them. I would just like watch over and over again. I honestly would probably, just to keep me in like a kind of a measured place on the island where I wasn't going to like commit suicide or anything, I would watch like a Bresson, like L'Argent, Money by Bresson, where I'd be like, you know what? Maybe it's better that I don't have money. Maybe it's better that I don't have a material world. I got to live on this island. I got to accept it. And then I would also want a movie that would remind me of the material world a lot. So maybe like The Rules of the Game by Jean Renoir, where I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that, like parties and like being in a nice giant estate with my friends. And then I'd have to have a film that's kind of like musical, like something that I could like sing along with, maybe like Gypsy, Rosalind Russell Gypsy, where I could just be like, all right, I'm gonna just be taken away for a while. I put Scorsese in there just to keep, but not Taxi Driver, because Taxi Driver would just get me like into a homicidal place. I would do like maybe like The Aviator,
Oh, interesting.
something where I'm like, okay,
Hope you can fly away from the island.
yeah, yeah. The Aviator would give me, or maybe not, because he's a neurotic kind of like he's kind of obsessive compulsive. No, I'll keep The Aviator. Um, and then I'd want something scary. Got to have something scary. I'd maybe do Dawn of the Dead, because it's like they're trapped in a mall, and I'd be like, you know what? At least I'm not in a mall. It's like at least I'm in like the natural landscape. Whereas Day of the Dead is kind of like on an island. But no, Dawn of the Dead by George A. Romero. Um, I'd maybe choose some like, oh, I would choose like a Frank Perry film, like The Swimmer, because it's kind of like this infinite loop of a film where it's like, look, no matter where you go, it'd be like one of those like where it's like, Mark, no matter where you go, you're gonna just be in the same place. You know what I mean? Like if you get off the island, you're gonna be still. I'd probably choose something that's just classic, like something that I could just watch time and time again. And I want to say like Empire Strikes Back or Back to the Future, one of those, or Temple of Doom, something that's like, okay, I'm gonna leave. Maybe I think it would be Temple of Doom probably, because I'm getting like a lot of, I'm just thinking about all the worlds he's going into in that film. I'm trying to think of like looking back on here. There's so many movies. Oh, I would definitely choose Red by Kieslowski. I would
Oh,
just watch
interesting.
Red
Yeah.
about. Um, I would definitely bring a Bruce Lee film, maybe. Um, maybe Game of Death, maybe probably Fist of Fury. Like, yeah, it's tough, man. There's so many good movies. I'm like worried because it's like if
I
I don't
mean,
know how many I did.
I mean,
Fist of Fury, Eyes Wide
that's a
Shut,
good. That's
Red,
a pretty good list, though.
Temple of Doom, Rules of the Game, Money by Bresson, Fist of Fury. Let's say Music Room by Saviet Ray. And then I think I put Gypsy in there. I put Dawn of the Dead in there. And I'll throw one more in there just for good luck. I got to go with one of my Italian boys. I got to do like, I'd probably do like Rocco and His Brothers by Visconti. That would be like my other, yeah. Those
That's
just
awesome.
a wide array.
I do like. That's why I asked the abandoned island question. Is because you have to put a variety, right? Because if you
You
just
have to.
if you ask like your top 5 films of all time, you might go with all dark or all serious, or
Totally.
And I feel like that's why I just wanted to kind of feel it out. Speaking of Taxi Driver, I saw it kind of recently again, and for the longest time, it's been my favorite film of all
It's
time.
fantastic. It's one of
And
the best films of all
I
time.
kind of had a new read, and if I had to put it like in one sentence, I see Travis as a school shooter who just happened to kill the right people. So like I
Wow.
would make a
Wow.
case for him being like that kind of person.
That's
And because
honestly, dude, you
everything
nailed
he
it.
does is selfish. Everything he
You
does
nailed
for
it.
himself, he never does it for anybody but himself. And that's kind of the important point. And the fact that he survives at the end and all that stuff is like, I know it's been like kind of talked about to death by critics, whether people like that it's a happy ending, people hate it, but I wish he died.
Dude, what you nailed it on the head with the school shooter. Taxi Driver is, in my estimation, not the if not one of the best films of all time, the best film of all time, because it deals with narcissism in a way that is so interesting. It's like this guy is so like people that love Taxi Driver. I'm not actually. I'm not even gonna go. I'm not even gonna go there. I'm just gonna say this: there is no better depiction of a character. It's so prescient. The narcissism that we see now today in the post neoliberal age, where everyone's just like, I'm the savior. I'm the savior. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. Uh, the delusions of grandeur that have infiltrated every corner of society, Western society, in the last, let's say, 10 years, is all in Travis Bickle. It is the most he is the most unaware person, while still thinking that he's the star of his own film, which is everyone. Everyone thinks they're the star. I'm the star now, but they have no self-awareness. It's like, it's
Absolutely,
incredible.
absolutely. And the world of narcissism, that's another important point, which we definitely live in right now. Instagram is basically like the best platform for narcissism. And I
And
mean, that's
and
a whole
and
nother
they're
conversation, but
and they're apps that are literally engineered and invested in because they perpetuate it. They're not trying to quell your self-loving ideals. They're like, no, you should be loving yourself even more. Um, yeah, man, it's really. I mean, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because it's dark. But
yeah,
Taxi Driver really captures this kind of like the romantic nature of narcissism. That score by Bernard Herrmann is so romantic. It's swooning. It's enticing you. Like I remember reading that when Scorsese heard the score for the first time on Christmas Eve, he was like, "What the hell is this?" I wanted like a horror,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
like I wanted
It's
Bernard
so
Herrmann, the
strange.
strings, and
Yeah,
he hears it and he's like, "This is," and then he's like, "Oh wait, it's actually an incredible, like it's seductive. It's seducing you into this world of narcissistic delusion.
it's
It's
very
brilliant.
strange. It creates that contrast and juxtaposition of it is like that makes it even weirder,
It's
which
so
is I
good.
don't know if it's the best adjective, but weird.
No, that's exactly it. It gives you the sense of unease. Like, why is it should that's like the score to like a sultry
Yeah,
romance
it
in the
is. It
19.
is. Yeah,
But
absolutely.
that's what it is. It's a romance with oneself and how diluted it can get. Like you can fall in love with yourself as this kind of like this manifestation of good. You really think you're the manifestation of good. Eh? You think you're going to
Yeah,
save the
yeah,
world, do you? You think you're
exactly.
going to save the world? Do you know how hard it is to save the world? Like you can't even save yourself. But I love that. I just love that film so much.
Who is your favorite director? Would you say it's Kubrick or
Stanley Kubrick has been my North Star for a long time, and he's always going to be that. I think, he's Charles Dickens. He's Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. He's Walt Whitman. He's E. E. Cummings. He's Ovid. He to me is like in a pantheon onto himself. I don't think any single person has contributed more to cinema ever. He's, I think he's the best, for so many reasons. Yeah, he'd be my favorite. And I just like in the end of the day, Zeke. In the end of the day, it's personal. It's like, what subjects interest you, and like I know I have friends that are like these subjects interest me, so it makes sense that Paul Thomas Anderson is your favorite director. The What I love about Kubrick, and this is not as a director, this is as someone who knows how to pick ideas, is Kubrick is always fascinated by hierarchies, the danger of hierarchies, the danger of power within hierarchies. No other director, with the exception of like maybe like a Visconti or a Coppola, dealt with hierarchies in such a like rigorous way from every film. And that's a topic that interests me because I'm fascinated by power. I'm fascinated by systems, by institutions. Why do they work? Why don't they work? Why do they oppress? Why don't they oppress? So just as a director that chose subjects, those are my favorite subjects. And a lot of directors fall under that. Renoir, he was obsessed with same ideas,
yeah.
but Kubrick is the best, I think.
I think there's a big kind of I agree that you just got to follow what interests you and don't be
Exactly.
not be ashamed also of it because I feel like there's this idea, especially young upcoming people who just getting into film want to do film, they kind of think that they have to give the smartest answer. They when they ask like, "What's your favorite filmmaker?" They have to say something a little more elaborate than I don't know Michael Bay, right? But if Michael Bay is what you like, go there. You know what I mean? Really take a deep dive and really like see. Tell me why you like Michael Bay.
Yeah.
Which I actually have a friend who likes Michael Bay and not everything, but he likes like three films, right? The Rock and Bad Boys and maybe another one. But like,
Yeah.
but that person would actually get really into why and what is there for him and into quite intellectually. I love my favorite filmmakers are Friedkin and John Carpenter.
Friedkin's amazing.
Yeah, I love John
Friedkin's
Carpenter, and
incredible.
yeah, Friedkin. Yeah, Friedkin is
Friedkin is so visceral. He's so real. He's so fearless. That's what I love about Friedkin. He's fearless to a fault sometimes, like with
for
cruising,
sure,
where I'm like,
for
dude,
sure. Yeah,
you're going into territories that you should not be going into, but I
yeah.
love it because he's willing to
Even The
go there.
Exorcist. I mean, for the time, think
Yeah.
about what
Oh,
The
it's
Exorcist was.
crazy.
I think it was
Crazy.
Mike Nichols. So there's three directors were for the film. Kubrick, that didn't want to do it.
Yes,
It was
that's right.
Mike Nichols
Mike
and
Nichols, which would have been a weird pick.
yeah. What's the
I
other
think he
guy?
did Carnal Knowledge instead or something.
Yeah, but I think Mike
And
Nichols was the other guy who did the um, uh, Bunny and Clyde. Um,
oh, oh yeah. Uh,
I forgot.
his
Completely left
his
my mind.
name's I don't
Arthur
remember.
Penn.
Arthur Penn. That's right, Arthur
Yes,
Penn.
yeah. So, but Mike Nichols, the one who said you'll never be able to make this to find a girl who does what Reagan does. You'll never be able to find 13-year-old girl that will act those scenes out. And
Man.
if you ever heard the full story of Friedkin telling like how he did find the girl and what kind of questions he asked her, like he had to find someone who he knew would not be scarred by this experience, someone who is understands these concepts, or masturbation with a cross, right, or saying those lines, like, and he did. He literally would ask the person on the interview, like when she was like, "Are you?" and she was fine with it, and her mom, of course, was there. Nothing weird. I know these are like, and there Linda Blair was just like a really
Linda Blair.
hip enough girl
Yeah.
to do this, but
Yeah.
it's so like raw and scary, right? Just like you said.
Friedkin's, but also, Friedkin's had a couple of like, I was listening to an interview with him actually recently where he was like, he speaks of regret. He's very much a guy haunted by what he's done.
For sure.
Because he talked about like making the French Connection, and he was like, man, I was driving those cars at 100 miles per hour in the middle of New York City without permits. I nearly killed people while I was making that. He's like, I don't know what I was thinking. Like that was a mistake. Now you look upon it now and you're like, time heals all wounds. Luckily, no one did get hurt. But man, Friedkin is the definition of an
For
irresponsible director.
And
Like,
this is what happened with the Sorcerer. I don't know if you've ever seen Sorcerer.
I have not yet seen Sorcerer because I love Wages of Fear so much that I
Oh no!
can't bring myself to see.
Just separate.
I love
Be an adult that you are, and just separate those two. You got it. You got it. You'll be fine.
I've been told so many times. I've been told by so many friends, dude, you got to see Sorcerer. You got to see Sorcerer.
Yeah. Two different
And
films.
trust me, I will go
just
see
for
it.
the music. Just for the music. All those
Dude,
people who
I
say
can't wait.
all those people who say John Carpenter and Brett Fiedel are the synthwave guys of the 80s can go F themselves, because Tangerine Dream,
Wow.
1977.
What? Tangerine Dream?
Sorcerer, 1977.
What?
If you ask John Carpenter, where did he get those ideas? He'll tell you Tangerine Dream from the Sorcerer.
I did not know that.
It's incredible.
But I will tell you this. You'll like this because you like Carpenter. I finally saw The Thing. It took me this long, but I saw The Thing. My jaw was dropped. I could not believe that this film.
Have you ever made the connection, and we can talk more about The Thing actually, but with Hateful Eight and The Thing are the same movie?
Yes. I had read some, actually, my friend Ethan Warren, he's a great writer in Bright Wall Dark Room. I think he might have alluded to that, how he was trying to make The Thing with a Hateful Eight.
It's 100% that. There's just too many similarities. And you know what the irony that I love is Ennio Morricone got a Razzie Award for The Thing and got an Oscar for
no way for
and it's the same soundtrack, and it's the same way. Yeah, it's Dude. Not he wrote more, but they used some parts of the soundtracks, some tracks from some unused tracks and used tracks from The Thing.
Now I want to rewatch Hateful Eight.
It's incredible. That's one of
But there goes that, that goes back to that theory of like, people don't get it right when it happens. People are very often not, like, when people are so confident that something's good or something's bad, I'm always like, what the hell do you know? Like, give it 10 years. You know what I mean? People people are it's hilarious how bad of a track record humans have. Like
Yeah,
we
true.
don't we that's why I love, like, look, I add to the confusion because I'm always on TikTok being like, I recommend this film, I recommend, but who like these films in 10, 15 years, they might be laughed at. They might be like, oh my God, are you kidding me? This was a good film. Which I just love that. I love the nature of time. Time
You
being
ever
like the
seen Big Trouble Little China?
no, I never saw that. Is that good?
Yeah, I mean
I'm
that's
not a
one of
dude. I'm
my.
telling you, my Carpenter, I've only seen like a few Carpenters. I'm like,
Yeah, he's a
you know,
special one for me, and we could talk.
Escape
Like
from
I
New
can
York.
definitely sell him to you, but he's a very unique guy, and always also contrarian. Also, just like Friedkin, you know, he kind of ruined his career with Sorcerer. Carpenter ruined his
Damn.
career with The Thing, but he kept making, you know, crazy films. Here's the
So
reason
you
you
like
gotta
bold,
watch.
you yeah, you like bold
It's
filmmakers.
definitely interesting to me, and I like when they're popular and they because they still are able to inject their ideas into pop stuff, you know, and that's kind of what makes it for me higher than just like a pop movie, you know.
Yeah.
Like if you watch Big Trouble Little China, here's my sell to you. The
Yeah.
studio wanted another Indiana Jones. Okay, they were like, okay, we want to make a film where we need another American hero like Indiana Jones, right? Carpenter's like, yeah, sure, no problem, right? He makes a movie about I don't know if you don't even know the concept of the film, but it's
No.
basically
No.
this big adventure in San Francisco Chinatown, and it's a big adventure of this American truck driver, Jack Burton, right? That's his name,
Great name.
and played by Kurt Russell, and he gets involved with this Chinese friend, Chinese American friend, and they get on this like Chinese mythology, demons and martial arts and
What?
ghosts. But the crazy thing is that Jack Burton is a side character, but he doesn't know it.
Oh, that's amazing.
So it's like he is the hero,
But
but
he's
if you
actually a
watch it carefully, he's the dumbest guy of the group. He doesn't save the day. He almost doesn't
that's amazing.
participate. Every time like there's a shootout, his gun is not working or something. You know what I mean? And he's like left out. Yeah, that's actually
That's
I
funny.
don't know if you know Red Letter Media, the
Yeah,
guys.
yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
so
Yeah.
it's actually like something like that thesis, like one of the guys said
Wow.
once, and I kind of like coined it.
Wow.
So I just want to give credit, but that was like the
That's
best way to
amazing.
say it. Like he's a side character, but he doesn't know it yet. He's not
Realize it.
aware of it, and I
Wow.
think
That's genius.
that was John Carpenter's way of like saying fuck you guys, like you don't need another American hero, and you actually have a lead of like these Chinese guys who like haven't barely acted in anything else, you know, at all, and they kind of lead the film. So it's kind of very hip and hippie and progressive, whatever you want to call it. I mean, and
Man, that's so cool,
I
man.
don't necessarily care about like the politics behind it because they're not in your face. It's very subtle,
What
you
is
know. It's
what would you classify John Carpenter's politics as? I haven't seen
he's
his
just
work
he
to
is like a hippie guy. He's a hippie guy
okay.
who was born in Kentucky, but
Wow.
hold on, he was born he was born in Bowling Green. Was it Kentucky? You know what? Now he was basically born in a hippie place, but grew up in a conservative place, and that kind of riled him up. So he had like a very kind of hippie family, but they grew up somewhere.
Yeah, because I saw I was watching a copy of Dark Star, his first film, and I was like, whoa, these are like this is like everyone's got long hair, they got long
Yeah,
beards. I
yeah,
was like,
yeah.
this is cool. Like
And
this
Dan
seems like
O'Bannon wrote it with him and
yes,
direct, yeah, which
yeah.
is crazy. Like he did
That's
such great films afterwards.
but I was like, it's very much like you can tell he's just totally out there. Like he's always been kind of out there as a
Yeah,
director.
yeah,
He
for
like,
sure.
you know how sometimes you'll watch a director, you're like, okay, they were kind of they situated themselves as mainstream and then they kind of got further and further away from it. No, Carpenter started in the middle of like weirdness and just got weirder.
Yeah, true. Yeah, he has a unique style. He went out there to make westerns. He was fascinated by westerns. Howard Hawks is his favorite filmmaker.
Well, you can tell the thing is so much of Howard
Yes, it
Hawks.
is.
It's
It is.
real
And
Bravo.
you ever seen Assault on Precinct 13?
Of course.
Yeah, so that's an
That's
urban
probably my
western.
favorite.
That's an urban western
That's
if you
right.
think about it.
That's right.
And
That's right.
I love his ideas that he never has evil with a face. It's always evil with no face. So it's
Love
kind of like
that.
it's
Wow.
always force of nature. That's why no Halloween iteration except the first one makes sense to me, because once you demystify Michael Myers, it doesn't make any sense. You
So
know,
well,
he
very
has to
well
be
said.
he has to be a force of nature. He doesn't have to be. He cannot be explained. Otherwise, he's not working. That's another
I
thing.
like
I
that
had a,
inexplicable evil.
yeah,
Inexplicable evil
inexplicable.
is a
Every
great.
film, you look at him, The Thing, and Assault on Precinct 13, they're people. They look like zombies almost when they attack the
Wow.
precinct. They're never. There's never
Wow.
like the leader. There's never
You're
the
making me
villain.
want to see. You make me want to
Not at
watch a
all.
bunch of John Carpenter right now,
It's the
man. I want to go on a marathon.
he's incredible. I absolutely like love his work. But yeah, I had actually a professor in school. One of like he's actually quite like he's known in the world. Foster Hirsch, and he's on like some of audio tracks of like some old like 50s films. I think Imitation of Life, Douglas Sirk's film. If you get a Blu-ray,
No way.
he's on the like commentary track. But anyways, it doesn't matter. But he wrote like some books on
What?
film
Oh,
noir and stuff.
he wrote the bio on Otto Preminger.
Oh yeah. That's that was my guy.
Whoa,
He considers
dude.
Halloween the masterpiece, and
It is like
it
you know,
is. Yeah, I
Halloween
know. But
it's a
you know
masterpiece.
how some people are like confused by its mastery, but he would say his
But
case.
what it boggles my mind, you know, like
He
that
says that Michael Myers is a sexual
deviant
manifestation of he's a
genius
manifestation of
of
her
Jamie Lee Curtis.
sexual frustration. Yeah, because she doesn't get she's the least pretty. Let's just say that, right? There was even like
Yes.
the whole rumor of her being hermaphrodite. There's a whole this like aura surrounding her, but she's the least pretty. She doesn't use bad language. All her girlfriends get basically sex easily. She's like the good girl, and he's kind of the only man that wants her, and it's her kind of you know losing her mind, I guess. I mean, I just love stuff like that. That's what makes films like this like stand out to me. Uh, and then you have every other remake of Halloween that's like just completely,
I haven't seen
you
I've
know.
only seen I've seen Halloween 1, Halloween 2, Halloween 3, 4, but I haven't seen the new ones. I haven't seen the David
Yeah,
Gordon
I
new
mean
ones.
they're terrible overall. Everything else
Man,
is
I
just
went to the theater to see what is the one where it ends with like a have you must know them better than I do, but I think it was Halloween 3 Season of the Witch,
oh yeah, but
where
that's
it's like sci-fi. I'm like, what the hell is happening
wait.
here?
You saw it in theater? You saw,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
not
I
when
saw
it
it in
came
theater.
out later.
No.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
They did a release at
Yeah,
the review here
that,
in
that, that
Toronto.
the thing with that one was that they thought that okay, enough of Michael Myers, maybe we can just do kind of like a keep making Halloween movies and make them about something else. So it's actually not a bad movie,
Yeah, it has
except
nothing to
you
do
just
with.
shouldn't, yeah, you just shouldn't call it Halloween or associated with Michael Myers. But
Yeah,
it's
like this is
actually, yeah, ironically, retrospectively, it's one of the best Halloween movies. It's like,
right. Yeah,
you know,
Tom Atkins
ironically.
is great in it.
Yeah, I know,
I
exactly.
I
You have
think Joe Dante was gonna direct it originally, and then he ended up doing a segment of the Twilight Zone. I really liked the weirdness of it, but it was just like, yeah, I felt like totally outside of the universe of Halloween. But like you
yeah,
said, it
it
was.
definitely was. What's the best horror film for you ever made? What's your pick?
That's a very good question. Oh man, there's so much. I love horror so much. Horror is such a fucking great genre.
You talked about Possession recently. I saw you.
I love
Yeah,
Possession.
I saw it in theaters recently, like a
Did
year
you?
ago.
Nice.
Yeah.
I've seen it in theaters three
Oh
times.
wow.
I own the Blu-ray. It's
Ooh.
up on the top shelf up there.
Okay. Oh
That's
wow.
it.
That's
But
a nice one.
I'm a huge fan of Possession. But here's the thing: I love Possession, but do I think it's a Possession? Possession gives me a bad feeling in the
Totally.
pit of my stomach. But as far as like gruesomeness, it's not really like if you want to go on like a barometer of very scary to like least scary,
Yeah.
somewhere in the middle. If I want really scary, I really do love The Exorcist. I love Dawn of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead, I think, is one of the best films ever made. Um, I love The Evil Dead 2. The Evil Dead 2 is probably one of my favorite horror films ever. I love Night of the Demon by Jacques Tournier, which I did one recently about. I love the way he plays with characters. You were talking about how Mike Myers is an extension of Jamie Lee Curtis's sexual frustration. In Night of the demon, quote unquote, is a manifestation of skepticism. It's a manifestation of a man who believes so much in logic and reason that he needs someone to counterweight him. And so he become this devil becomes actually, what is the devil? And what is the scientific method's devil? The scientific method's devil is skepticism. It's saying, no, that's not true. That's not true. No, you're wrong. You're wrong. So they end up becoming kind of like devils to each other, which I love. I love that part of the. I love that script. I think there's a short story that it was based on. I love Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think Texas Chainsaw Massacre could be the best horror film of all time. Up there with Dawn of the Dead. I think what James, I think what Toby Hooper did with it was just mind blowing. Like if someone made like the closest approximation to that it's in modern time is kind of like Blair Witch Project, maybe, because it is so real. There, I think there's two ways of going about good horror. Good horror comes in two directions. You either make something so real that you're convinced that it actually happened, and now you're terrified for your life because it could happen to you, or it goes into the hyper stylized, surreal, this is terrifying because I've never conceptualized horror in this way before. And that I would fall into, The Thing or Suspiria or Midsummer or Midsommar. Those films are kind of like crazy surreal states. I don't know. Sometimes, and it goes back to this idea of like taste and where you are in your life. Sometimes reality scares me way more than surreality. And sometimes I'll watch an Argento film like Opera, and I'll be like, Jesus, like, oh my God, it's disgusting. Like, or like what's the film that the New Zealand Peter Jackson did?
Dead or Alive.
Dead Alive,
Yeah,
where I'm like, oh great, my God, like this guy's, you're going there, like that. I didn't think you could go there, but you're gonna go there. There's, I love the genre. I also love, like there's something creepy about old films like 1920, like Freaks, where I'm like, that Freaks to me falls in that, is this real? And if it's not real, what the hell is going on? Who thought of this? Freaks to me is one of the best horror films of all time because it is so, it somehow terrifies and also sympathizes its subjects. You're both like, it's like he cares about them so much. You don't get that a lot in horror films. You don't get directors that deal in horror and wait. Like Sam Raimi loves Bruce Campbell in Evil Dead. He loves him. The only reason he's putting him through hell is because he loves him. Same with Todd Browning in Freaks. He loves his character so much that it's just,
well, that's kind of, it has to happen. I feel like you have to have love for your characters, otherwise there's no, like, it's almost meaningless.
But that being said, in The Thing, I'm like, does he love his characters? I don't know. But I think that's still interesting. Like, what I love about The Thing when I saw it was that I don't know who the hero is. It goes back to your whole the Big Trouble in Little China. It is Kurt Russell, but he gives so much time to everyone that he kind of becomes a collective protagonist. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just an interest. I find that you must be so talented to do that. I could never do that. I need to anchor someone in my story. Carpenter does it so effortlessly. Hitchcock does that too. I
guess Coen Brothers do it too. I guess Coen Brothers don't really maybe love their characters neither.
Like Michael Haneke, does he love his characters? When I watch, Funny Games or the Piano Teacher, it's a different kind of love. I'll put it that way. My idea of love is a very Neoplato idea. It's ideal. It's like I idealize people. That's very Neoplatonic. But Michael Haneke's idea of love is I'm not saying it's more complex, but it's way more masochistic. And look, anyone that's been in a relationship knows that love comes in different forms. You can love someone to death, literally. You can kill someone with niceness. So some directors, I think Spielberg kills his characters with niceness. He doesn't know how to treat his characters badly. So when I watch The Fabelmans, I'm like, okay, but what? Who cares? Like, and I don't mean to deride him because he's a brilliant director, but you're killing me with your night. Like, you don't get.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
so
have you seen Fabelmans?
Yeah, I saw it at TIFF, and I mean, look, I think there's something to be said about what Tarantino said, which is some directors have to. Directing is kind of a young person's game to some extent, and I mean, I liked it. I didn't dislike it. I just don't know what. I don't know. Look, he's earned his right. He's earned his place. What am I going to say?
No,
He's a
but
master.
you know, yeah, but that has nothing to do with, you know, we can still criticize or talk about his work. You know, that's not,
Yeah, he's got
doesn't
an.
mean you disrespect him. You know, you can just discuss the movie without attaching. You know,
I don't want to spoil it. Did you see it?
no, you
Okay.
don't.
I
Yeah,
don't want to
without
spoil it,
spoilers, just
but
go
I'll
ahead.
do without spoilers. I'll say, is Spielberg capable of deep introspection? I don't know. But that might be why he's so good at entertaining films, because he doesn't get lost in the introspection of what would define other directors' greatness, i.e., Michael Haneke, i.e., Krzysztof Kieslowski. These directors are so introspective that it's insane. Bergman is one of the most introspective directors ever. Spielberg, I don't know if he's got that capacity. And so when I see The Fablemans, and I get it, it's written in the title, The Fable, as in the story, Men's. I get that he's trying to give us a romantic, again, Neoplatonic, ideal version of reality. I just don't know if it works for me given the subject matter, which is a daunting character study of a young guy trying to, I don't know. I liked Armageddon Time a bit more actually by James Gray.
I feel like for Spielberg, my still favorite film is The Duel, even though I don't think
Duel's great.
it's his best film. I think probably might be Schindler's List or something that came around there, but it's interesting how like still like my personal favorite is still his first kind of film, and it was made for TV.
And
You know,
Duel's
not even
so ahead
for
of its time, man.
yeah.
Duel was like,
Well, that was the whole thing, right? With you know, with the movie brats and when the big studios started letting them take over, like because films like Duel were made for TV, and
it's
the
insane.
films at home, people at home were like, "What the hell is this?" Like,
I
I'd rather see
know.
this than go see like this giant spectacles at movie theaters, and studios were like,
Dude,
"Okay,
it's
let's."
it's funny you bring up the TV movie. Duel is a great example of like, okay, here's a director that is giving it his all, even though he's doing a TV movie, 1971, he's giving it his all. I just watched a film last night, which was Frank Perry's film named Dummy, and it was a TV movie with Paul Sorvino, and it's a procedural drama, but it's Frank Perry who did The Swimmer, fantastic director last summer. And I'm watching this film, this TV movie, and I'm like, the state of things is bad when a TV movie from the 70s is better than most films that are being released
That's crazy. Yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
cinemas today. And Duel is a great example. Dummy by, again, if you're listening to this podcast, watch Dummy by Frank Perry. It's
I
fantastic.
haven't seen it. I'll check it
1979.
out. Yeah.
It's very hard to find because it was literally just Warner Brothers kind of buried it, got released straight to TV, and then they didn't
So
ever really do it.
two questions about today, since we're on this topic, real quick.
Yeah.
Um, First of all, who do you think is like the best director working today that came up in the last 10 years, in your opinion? And let's talk about the top films of the year.
Okay, we got to do another podcast for the top 5 films of the year because I got to get going soon because that's a
Sure, sure,
huge
sure.
question, and
Okay,
I still need to see a few films. But
okay,
we should
okay.
do that. We
We
should
can
do
get
a.
back to it. Sure, sure. Let's do
But I
that.
will
Yeah.
give you. But working as far as working
Let's
right
do at
now,
the end of the year, like or beginning of
yeah,
next year, we can wrap up before the Oscars or something.
I love
So,
that. I love that.
sure. Okay.
But I'll give you the directors that I love working right now. Ones that I go out to see, like ones that I like. Oh, I got to see their next film. Okay, do they have to have give me like parameters? Like, do they have to have started in the last 10 years?
Um. Well, yeah, yeah. Let's. Well, no. Okay. I mean. Okay. Oh, sorry. I understand. Like Denis Villeneuve could work if that's like the question. Like even though he
Because yeah,
started in 2000s, you know, but he really
yeah.
came up in the last 10 years. Came up. Let's say let's describe came up as became popular slash more well known,
Okay.
recognized.
Okay. I think the best living director, the one that I'm most excited to go see their next film, is Alice Warwisher, and she's Italian director who did Happy as Lazaro and The Wonder.
Oh yeah, yeah. I saw Happy as Lazarus.
Um, I'm I'm see if I have my copy of The Wonder. The Wonder here. Yeah, here it is.
The Wonder I have I
The
seen
Wonders
one
is
of them?
fantastic. You gotta
Oh,
see.
did it just came up or something like that?
Came out in 2009, I think it was, or
Oh, never mind, never
2014.
mind. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Anyways,
Okay.
Alice Rohrwacher is, for my money, the most exciting director as far as no one does magic realism like her. Everyone is trying to do magic realism. Not everyone, but there's a lot of like directors trying to do like one foot in reality, one foot in surreality. And I just don't like, I think it's one of the hardest genres to tackle. I think it's one of the hardest, let's call it, languages to write in, because it can easily go one way or the other. It can easily go into like cheesy, I don't know, is this, are you just trying to evade reality? Or it can go the other way where it's like, all right, we get it. Like you're trying to tell this moral tale through hyper real. Alice Rohrwacher is incredibly, she's got an incredible knack for tone and an incredible knack for story. Her subjects interest me. She's got this like almost like timeless aesthetic that reminds me of like 1960s like Truffaut or something. Like she's got this like incredible sense of color and style. She excites me. Another director that excites me these days, Ari Aster. I like Ari Aster. I think I think his writing is incredible. Um, I love Midsommar. I think that was a fucking fan. I think the fact that he got a 2.5 hour film made and succeeded and making a horror film all during daylight is insane.
It is, yeah.
Like I just don't think that
Do you
like
like Do you like Wicker Man?
I love Wicker Man.
Yeah, okay.
You talking about
Just
the
make sure.
original?
Yeah, 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 of course.
Oh yeah, of course. Then that there's a director that never got to make another, like he made 2 films that afterwards, but didn't really get a chance. I love Ari Aster's sense of tone as well. That's a big thing for me, man. If I watch a film and they get a tone right, it doesn't have to be the greatest story, but if they get a tone, I'm like, I'm in.
Yeah, I agree with you. But I'm more fascinated with people who juggle tone, like
Give me an
virtuosos,
example.
like Tarantino. Like
Oh,
I could
Tarantino.
never
Oh,
do that.
jeez.
I mean, he's the
Oh
most
my
crazy
God.
big example, of course. I mean, there's others, but like I'm so like when I get to direct and stuff, I try to stick to one tone. I feel like it's such a
Dude.
slippery road, and you have to be like, I don't know, thinking like that, like to jump from one tone to another. From I that's just like scares the shit out of me.
Dude,
But yeah,
it's insane. Like when you think about what he's doing, like it's like an obstacle race. You're like, oh, wow, you're gonna do that, and then you're gonna add that into the mix. It's
but
like,
if even Spielberg, even someone like Spielberg, can get you from emotional place to like
oh yeah,
exciting, and
totally,
I think of these guys like architects, and
totally,
they just
totally.
kind of like they. It's probably written in his script notes where people start crying at 1 hour and 45 minutes and 30 seconds. People
Totally.
drop a tear. Like that's how I feel of Spielberg generally. Well, definitely in his prime. I feel like he's made a lot of films at this point that haven't been like as great.
Yeah.
Um,
I like I really like Ruben Östlund. I
oh,
think
I
talk
love him.
about
Oh
tone,
my
talk about
God.
tone.
Yeah, another great example. Yeah,
Dude,
I love
I
Ruben
know he's been
Östlund.
making movies for a while, but it's just like he's just what he does with the
He's
canvas.
one of my favorite guys. I would say yes for
eh,
sure. It's
I'm just
incredible.
I'm like, what's going on? Like, how is he doing this? Like,
I
it's
don't know.
he, and again, he makes it look effortless. He makes it look like anyone could do it. I love that about him. I love that I love the feeling of going to a movie and being like, I'm in good hands. I don't have
Yes,
to.
yes. Well,
Sometimes I'll go
that's
see a movie. I'm
important.
like,
Well, that's so important, right? It's like you have to trust the artists, otherwise, you reject it. So that's a
yeah,
very
yeah,
important thing. That's why the artists can't make it about themselves. So
exactly.
they have to like be genuine with you, and that's the important part. Is like, you can't be pretentious. You can't be like
No,
self-indulgent. Once the shot is on the character a little too long and it's not deserved, right? You've seen Ghost Story, I assume,
yeah. Oh, I mean,
right?
I won't go into that. I won't go
Right.
into
But
that.
anyway, but the
I don't want to be
infamous.
negative.
Oh, you're not a fan.
Dude, I mean, I don't. I'm gonna stay positive on this, so no comment. Can I be? Can I say no
Okay.
comment
All
on?
right. Sure. I love that guy, and I love Ghost Story. And when she eats the cake, and it's so easily can be interpreted as like it's not deserved. It's just self-indulgent BS. Where
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I it not for me it works. For me it's like it's not pretentious. For me it's like it's genuine. Like I get it. Like I understand it. I'm with her. But I've been in places where I get, my body is just like like my body recognizes that you're not genuine with me. You're just fascinated
Yes.
by
Yes.
how cool you are, how amazing of a filmmaker you are, because you got this chance. Because I know what it means to be in this industry. It's not genuine. You're BSing me, and I'm not in good hands, right? But totally agree with about Robin Osland. Like when you like, you just wanna, be hugged by him almost. You know what I mean? You laugh at yourself, like, right?
I know.
Uh, when you see his films, he makes you look at, you know, at ourselves.
I think obvious ones, Barry Jenkins is exciting. I mean, but the thing is he's got curtailed by Disney. Same with Greta Gerwig. It's like exciting directors that I wish would stay on the path of
I
like
agree.
personal projects and
I
like
agree.
unfortunately get sidewinded by, the enchanting allure of money. And do I blame them? No. But I'm not like one of these like how dare you sell out,
Yeah, yeah,
man?
yeah.
Like
I know,
you're in
I know.
film.
Yeah,
You
yeah, yeah, yeah,
film
for
is the most
sure.
capitalistic system in the like one of
Yeah,
the
you're
most
right.
capitalist ridden. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not that. It's more just like a tragedy as a viewer. I'm totally selfish. I think that what they're doing is probably good for them. It's incredible for them. They're getting a huge opportunity. But as a viewer, I'm like selfish. I'm like,
yes, yes,
but
yes. I
why are you
agree.
doing
I
that?
agree. I agree. When I
Like,
saw Little Women, I felt like that was. I felt like she didn't was she wasn't let they didn't let her do what she probably would have done if she just had full power. That's my read for the film.
what do you
Like
think
I
about
felt
Barbie?
that
What do you think about Barbie?
I haven't seen it, but I don't
Well,
have
what do you like? What do
any.
you? But do you think it's going to be
I don't
like
know. I don't think it's gonna be much. Like I don't have like I'm not excited. Like I'm excited about Noah Baumbach's new movie, right? Because who has
same,
stayed
same?
for like, by the way,
Stayed relevant for so
my
long.
read modern Woody Allen. That's it. Noah Baumbach, if I had to call
I
him.
mean, yeah, the only issue I think with the comparison is Woody Allen would never make a 125-minute movie.
For sure. Yeah, I
Woody
guess.
Allen would always make films like 90 or less.
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah.
you're G.
True, true, true.
That's what makes him a genius. And also, I mean, Woody Allen, I think, dealt with way more complexity regarding sexuality. I think Baumbach is a bit scared of sexual subjects. And I'll give you an example. Marriage Story. Marriage Story. It's in the title, marriage, and yet it doesn't even, there's not even and look, you don't have to make a film about sex, but to make a film about a relationship and get so intimate about it, but not even explore that, but the machinations of what let's say the lack of sex or sex itself, it doesn't exist in Baumbach's films. They're so asexual, and that's so
There's a little bit of that in Squid and the Whale, which is probably my favorite.
there
Uh,
is
you know,
there is
like
peppers of it.
because yeah, but I agree with you. Generally I agree with you. But if I had to say, I think that movie explores it a little bit because not because, but there's I think
But
it's
that's
a
a
little more
symptom of
present.
the
Yeah.
age, man. The symptom of the age is like we are afraid of sex in cinema. Like that there's no directors that are dealing with uh I mean, that's why I love Tar so much, but it's like no directors deal with sexual taboo anymore because
Yeah,
they're
I agree with
we
you.
become so cold to that subject. It's really sad. That's also a reason why I love Eyes Wide Shut, because it totally dissects sexuality in a way that the old 1960s Italian cinema, the films like La Notte or My Night at Maud's, Romer's films from France, they dealt with sexuality head on. Now you're getting sexuality in such superficial ways, especially in television now. It's like I find it so disconcerting because it's a conversation that
That's a
just,
good point. Look at
you know,
the Piano Teacher, right? My favorite
that's why I love Haneke, man.
Haneke film. Yeah, it's incredible.
Beautiful
Like
example.
what goes in there, it's like it's such a great film. I can't like it's a mastery of rhythm and tone and pacing
Dude,
and editing and like
dude, like the editing in Haneke's films is insane. And I can't overstate that. What you just said is so on point. The rhythm of a Haneke film is so precise. You know who has it kind of is Todd Field and Tar. And
yeah,
Todd Field
true.
actually got Michael Haneke's editor
That's
to
so
edit Tar.
true. That is so true. I never made the connection. You're right. It is a little Haneke esque method to Tar,
Dude, it's
and
got
and
that
the
kind
Little
of like,
Children doesn't look. I love Little Children, by the way.
yeah.
I love that film, but it doesn't.
Mhm.
It doesn't have any. well, maybe a little bit, but it doesn't have that. Almost feels like films by two different people.
It
Like
does.
to
It
me.
does. I agree.
And I always had like like I've seen Little Children many times. I had a DVD, and I always like was obsessed with that film. A great cast, great
Very literary.
everything. Yeah, yeah. Very eye-opening, and it's nobody's good. I love when you don't have a hero really. Everybody's like imperfect, and
Yeah, Jake
um,
Earl Harley or whatever. Haley plays that like pedophile, and there's that scene in the swimming pool, and I'm just
that
like,
is
holy
amazing.
crap,
Yeah. No, that
it's
guy's
insane.
and even he even feels bad for him too. He loves these characters.
Yeah,
Uh,
he does. Todd Field
yeah,
does.
yeah,
There's an
yeah.
example of a director that loves their
And none of them are
characters,
perfect. They're like
and
terrible.
none of them are exactly love.
Yeah.
He loves all their imperfections.
Not cynical.
Not cynical. No.
Mark Sera, I appreciate you coming on. It was so much fun talking to you, dude. I hope we do it again, man.
Yeah, likewise. We're definitely gonna do. Not hope. We're definitely gonna do this
We're
again.
gonna do this again. I appreciate it.
We're gonna chat more. You're gonna convince me more about Carpenter.
Awesome.
We'll talk more.